Town Council meeting of Monday, November 18th, 2024. We are in the Durham Town Hall Council Chambers. I call this meeting to order. Let's do roll call introductions. Let's start with Councilor Grant.
Heather Grant.
James Coulter.
I am Todd Selig, the administrator.
Sally Liddell.
Joe Friedman.
Wayne Burton.
Eric Lund.
Darrell Ford.
Curtis Register.
All right. Is there anyone on Zoom? Councilor Friedrichs? No. Okay.
There's not a counselor on Zoom.
Okay. Next item is approval of the agenda, and I would like to make a change to the agenda. I would like to take item A of unfinished business and put it after B and C.
Sounds good.
And then
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
second?
Second.
Second from Councilor Ford. All right. Hand raised. All those in favor? All those opposed? It's for 7 of us. Okay. Next on the agenda are public comments. And before the public comments start, I would say if some of you may be here to address something that happens later in our agenda, which may be later, then you want to be here, in which case I encourage you to speak during public comments. The only difference between the two is public comments are limited to 5 minutes. I would also ask that if you find that you are saying something that the council has heard from someone else who's here this evening, and you want to shorten your comments by saying, you know, I'm here to agree with so-and-so about such and such, just as a way to keep the meeting moving along, not because we don't want to hear your comments. So with that, I'll open public comments. Give us your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes. Yes. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Do I come forward?
Yes, if you can come to the mic, or if you're more comfortable sitting
here.
down, either standing or sitting.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
I'm Katie Wheeler, 27 Mill Road, Durham, New Hampshire. Doug and I bought our house in the August of 1967, and there were Tyrrells living across the street from us, which made us particularly interested when Wagon Hill Farm was purchased when the Tyrrells sold it to the town in '89, and we were very excited about that, and I continue to be excited all the time when I see how popular Wagon Hill is for people all around the state, and that it is a statewide icon, not just something special in Durham. And I think it is I believe it's our obligation to preserve it, to preserve the Bickford Chesley House at Wagon Hill Farm. It's part of the council's stated goals for 24-25 to strengthen the community in a welcoming and inclusive manner by offering a wide array of active and passive parks and recreation and library opportunities, including facilities celebrating the rich tapestry of Durham history. Having lived here for some years, I have been saddened to see historic houses not be protected. I loved Red Tower when I first moved here, and I was very excited about the Valentine Smith house. And in Durham, so many wonderful houses either have been torn down or turned into student rentals. And this is an opportunity not to be lost. It is something important to the whole state. I was excited to read that the Bickford Chesley House is significant for Federal and Greek Revival style design and timber frame construction. So it's well worth preserving. I've always been jealous of Portsmouth for having so many wonderful historic houses that people can go into, and wanting my wonderful hometown now to have the same thing. The other thing I want to stress is I've been very, very excited about what the proposals were for the use of the house, and to have exhibits that focused on the environment. I mean, that's got to be on all of our minds right now. And to show how climate change is impacting the local environment, to help people understand how their decisions and actions affect the environment, to build knowledge necessary to address complex environmental issues, and to help people understand how they can take action to keep the environment healthy and sustainable for the future. I see nothing of less urgent. This is the most urgent thing I believe that we should be doing now. So I urge you to support the funds that have been contributed already for this, and to allow the restoration of the Bickford Chesley House to go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to add to that. When we bought Wagon Hill, it was for three things. The Boy Scouts, so the Boy Scouts could camp in the Grove, so the dogs could run free, and we had Durham Day picnic down there. First thing we did. Then we had a little trouble with the barn, as old barns do when they get to be 90 years old or so. The sills start to rot. And there was nothing wrong with that barn that couldn't be fixed by jacking it up and shoving new sills under it. What Todd did instead of that was they had two machines down there one morning, without telling the historic people or anyone or any of these people here. They had two machines down there one morning, 7 dumpsters, and by 11 o'clock in the morning, that barn was in 7 dumpsters without telling anybody. I'm amazed that the people that were responsible for that are still working for the town, but it's Durham. I got a couple things I want to show you. I certainly have seen the work going on Madbury Road, and I hope you can all see this. Let me explain to you what it is. This is a lamp pole in the middle of a 5-foot sidewalk. On the insistence of the public works director, who just had a high school education and can't measure, and saying you can't do that. And everybody's out there wondering, what are they thinking of? And so I went to the council over here, and I pulled the tape measure out of my back pocket. So I work for the construction company. I live with a tape measure all the time, and you can't do it. So, because if you put a lamp pole in the middle of the sidewalk, now you can't plow it. Now you can't take a wheelchair down it. The whole thing was totally insane. And then Todd made that person public works director for 20 years, which was, I can go on a lot of stories about that. So that's the sort of thing that happens in Durham. You get people making decisions that really shouldn't be making decisions. They don't have enough experience to make those decisions. Everybody see this? That's the alarm panel. I brought in Mr. Larson commented, but I didn't talk about it. That's the alarm panel for the fire alarms at the university and town buildings, the fraternities and stuff. As you can see on that picture, there were notes and rubber bands to keep the trouble signals in, the buttons to silence the trouble signals. There was absolutely nothing anyone could do after we'd had, the reason that was in there, because we'd had 2 people die in a fraternity fire. Put that in, but the university got a low-budget company. They went out of business. We're stuck with that thing. And the president of the university said he wanted to see it fixed. And so the superintendent of properties hired a person in his own fraternal organization that couldn't use an ohm meter. 6 months later, Christmas Day, we had another fire. And the president called me on Saturday morning and said he needed to talk to me. And I went up there, and before I could sit down, he said, all right, I know I've been lied to. You see, that wouldn't happen. That wouldn't be allowed in any other town in this state. No fire department would allow that. None. Period. Zippo. He says, okay, I know I've been lied to. What do I do to fix it? So we have Paul Sawyer fix the fire alarms. Who's that? One of your electricians. What, he works for us? Yeah, the guy they hired couldn't use an ohm meter, had no idea how to fix a fire alarm. That's another example of what goes on in Durham. I'll give you a couple more I got here real quick. I've had a battle for some time at the community church. Just happened to bring it tonight. This is a survey for their property. It shows that I own the road for where it goes on my property. So I got a letter from the church one day saying that I didn't have any rights beyond entering my property. He was actually correct. I don't have any rights. I own it. I don't need rights. Then, if that didn't clear it up, okay, this is the church's letter from their lawyer saying same thing.
Thank you, Bill.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just a quick clarification.
Yes.
Especially with the people who don't know the history. The barn at Wagon Hill Farm was actually across from the house, I believe. What we worked on was the stable, which is what that building. Secondly, it was not Todd's choice. We discussed that at length on the town council of why that had to be done that way, and we were very meticulous, including the size of the windows, to historically recreate what was there before. And I think that's important to note. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers? Yes, just come up. You don't have to be called on. You can. Thank you.
K. Morgan, 16 Valentine Hill Road. In 1989, the town put forward a special vote to buy Wagon Hill Farm in order to preserve the land, the house, and the history of the place. I was a bit of a skeptic that I would want to vote in favor of this huge purchase. I was recently divorced. I wasn't sure I could pay the property tax increase that I was sure would follow. But part of the appeal of the proposal to me at that point was that the property and the house could become a place for the community to gather and for special events to be held. I voted in favor, and I've never regretted it. I am a founding member of the community garden at Wagon Hill, a use which we perceive to be in the spirit of the original land use, and has helped to fulfill the original premise of the community use of the property. The town has stewarded the land well and created trails, enhanced the environment for monarch butterflies and pasture land birds, and helped to preserve the shoreline. The community garden produces hundreds of pounds of fresh produce, which we donate to the local food pantries. The house, however, has not received the attention it needs. This is our opportunity to take the steps necessary to preserve the house and enhance the possibility of additional community use, public use of the barn and restrooms, while the downstairs of the house will exhibit some Durham history for visitors and residents alike. It would be short-sighted, in my opinion, to reject the L-chip and Moose Plate grants, risking not only the disintegration of this historic building, but also our credibility with those entities with whom we have signed acceptance papers. We jeopardize the future of such grant opportunities if we back out now. It's my understanding that these grants were accepted with the full approval of the town council, and additional money has been allocated in this current budget. I urge you to take whatever steps are necessary at this time to confirm the intention of the town to fully realize the original intent of the purchase of this property back in 1989, preserving the house, the land, and the history of the place. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Doug Cairo of 95 Wiswall Road. I happen to be the current president of the Durham Historic Association. We've already submitted written comments to you. We're a bipartisan group, but when events line up so closely with our interests, our vision, and our charter, we do want to make sure that no one wonders what we stand for and what we think about it. And we certainly support turning the house into renovating it and making it more of a community asset. Now, I want to speak as a private citizen, though. 15 years ago, my wife and I retired. We moved here to Durham because of the quality of life here. And the quality of life is made up of many things, but one of them is essentially recognizing historical resources and preserving them and enhancing them. And that's been reflected in master plan statements, in council resolutions and so on. And it is an important part to the sort of the look and feel of this community that we like so much. My daughter and her husband and her children live in Durham. They like this because it's quality of life. And if we don't maintain and improve those things, something changes. I can't tell you how fast or how quickly, but we have something to protect now. And I think very long and hard before I, by neglect, let things slip away. So I think, again, it's for our quality of life, I'd say maintain and improve the Bickford Chesley House at Wagon Hill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for a point of clarification, Todd, Kay Morgan's statements earlier about kind of the timing of things, were those accurate, or did we want to provide any clarity in terms of the where the Wagon Hill project currently stands in the budget and the funds accepted? Did that seem accurate, or did we need any clarification there?
Seems accurate.
Okay, I thought it would be good to address that publicly, so, yeah.
Hi, my name is Charlotte Hitchcock, 14 Stone Quarry Drive. I am a member of the Heritage Commission and the vice chair of it, and I thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak quickly early because I also can't stay for too long. I am pleased and very grateful that for the past several years, the town council has supported and endorsed the project to rehabilitate the Wagon Hill farmhouse. I've been involved in that effort, and we have worked our way through the planning stages and the awards of state funding in 2 rounds of grants. And now the farmhouse is so close to being brought back to life and open to the public. The project needs the extra financial boost as proposed in this budget to get over the many hurdles that were caused by the pandemic years, which slowed things down and increased the cost of everything. As soon as the building opens, Durham residents will be able to mount exhibits, hold small meetings at all times of the day and evening, unlike the library, for instance, that closes early, use indoor restrooms, and have a warming center throughout the year, so sledders would be able to have a place to get warm and have something to drink. The upstairs caretaker apartment will earn rental income while providing extra security to Wagon Hill Farm. People will appreciate the value of this place when we can actually use it. If the farmhouse is not completed and opened, people may see the investment as wasteful because we won't be getting value from it. So I advocate for adding this additional funding that we need this year and being able to complete the process of renovating the entire farmhouse and putting it to use for everyone's use. And I would like to comment that Janet Perkins Howland has written an eloquent letter expressing all the ways that Durham will benefit from the new community spaces, and I like the way she expressed it and would not be able to say it any better. This is a moment, I believe, to move forward by approving the budget item and not shortchange a project that has been waiting for more than a generation already. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Robert Chase, a resident of Franconia, New Hampshire. On the other hand, I went from kindergarten through UNH, living in Durham in a series of 6 houses, so I'm sort of local too. Katie and a number of people are speaking to a lot of the specifics on Wagon Hill Farm. I just want to hit a few points that may be a little on the side and add more. My professional career has been with dealing in preservation for over 50 years. I started out under a grant from Governor Peterson, being on the first review board for historic preservation in New Hampshire, and then worked for the State Commission on the Arts on preservation projects. Have restored about 50 houses myself, have worked on Portsmouth things. So I do know a little bit about old houses. The Wagon Hill Farm house is a particularly nice early house. It's one of the better for its period in this area. It equals the houses of the same age in Portsmouth or Newburyport. It's in a unique location with all of the land to the left and then all of the Emery Farm controlling the controlled fields and property to the right. So really the house sits in the middle of all of this great acreage. So not only do you have a really fine house, it's in a setting that's absolutely unbelievable. I go way back to camping in the woods down in there, so I have personally a long history with the property. Today, I was back and forth on the phone with Jennifer Goodman, who's executive director of New Hampshire Preservation Alliance. They have not been specifically working on this project, but she did emphatically state that this is the type of project that they work on, that several people who were on the line too said, we know the property. When we ride by, there's always a line of cars parking there. In the winter, they're sliding down the hill. Otherwise, they're hiking and such. One of the things that somebody has mentioned is, and I'm 85 with a cane, so I can't walk around the property the way I used to. I can drive up and look at it. But the idea of the house being restored and exhibits and things, there were a lot of seniors who like to go down onto that property. So I think that adds a whole other aspect that I haven't heard anyone else talk about. So I don't really need to take any more of your time. I would answer any questions in the future or as you think about this. I will leave a letter from myself and from my cousin and his wife, David and Mary Ann Chase, who live on the Durham Point Road, who couldn't be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marjorie Smith. I live on Piscataqua Road in the house my husband grew up in with the Chase boys. And I first want to thank Durham voters for sending me back to Concord to represent them in the legislature for the 14th time.
Yes.
And I think I'm appreciative of that. I'll let them know after this term, however. But during all of those years, we've done some things that I am particularly proud of. And one of them is LCHIP. In fact, one of our former Durham representatives, Judith Spang, played a major role in helping to develop LCHIP, and might still be, or if not very recently, has been on the committee to screen the incredibly high-quality applications that come in. And I know from my legislative colleagues how incredibly appreciative we are when one of our proposals is accepted. It's hard to do. Those proposals go in, they have to have the support of the town government, they have to have support of all kinds of knowledgeable people, they're screened, and when in fact one is granted, it is a time for a lot of cheers. But there is something about those grants that I have to mention, and that is they are not fungible. In other words, when a town is honored to receive an LCHIP grant, and honored they should be because so many of those grants are turned down because there's just not enough money. When a town is honored, it is required to use the funds for the purpose that the town committed to in advance. And if the town doesn't use them in that way, and this should come as no surprise, those funds have to be returned. That's what I mean when I say they are not fungible. You cannot say, okay, we have X number of dollars from LCHIP, but we've changed our minds on our own, and therefore we're going to use that money for something else. I think that if a town were to try to do that, they would be penalized, and they would be looked at askance, and I pretty much could guarantee that never again could they get a grant awarded. They might apply. It's therefore very important that this council, and I know the council acts with due diligence, recognizes that its predecessors have committed to using that money for a very specific purpose, and the town government supported that. And therefore, I am a little confused about why there should be any discussion at all about what to do with the LCHIP funds and the funds that would be necessary to support the purposes that were laid out so carefully by your predecessors. I know that how hard it is to make decisions. I'm about to go into a legislative session which might be as much as $1 billion short of the money that state agencies believe they need. It is a very hard position to be in, and I sympathize with you. But that does not free you or us from the obligation to do the right thing. And I would like to say, if there's anything I can do to help, I'm here to help, and I wish you well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marjorie.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Bernay. I'm at 7 Hampshire Avenue in Durham. I'm talking on a different subject. I just wanted to take a moment to thank the many Town of Durham employees, elected officials, and volunteers for their extraordinary efforts during the recent election. First, to our town clerk, Rachel Dean, and her outstanding team in the clerk's office, Audrey and Lori. Their dedication, organization, attention to details ensured a smooth, accessible, and a very well-managed voting process. And their hard work, professionalism shown through at every step. Also want to thank and recognize the supervisors of the checklist, Ann Schump, Christian Kuhn, and Deborah Hirschmeyer. Their efforts to manage so many registrations in advance of Election Day and on Election Day were incredible. And their work to maintain the integrity of the voter rolls was critical to their success, or to the success of this town. Also to the town moderator, Chris Reagan, great job. I know it was a challenging day. And thanks to all of the employees, many of you, and all the volunteers that helped. The dedication and service does not go unnoticed. On another note, but still related to the election, I want to express my concern regarding the challenges made to absentee ballots during this election. While I respect the right of any voter to raise legitimate challenges within the bounds of election law, it's important to acknowledge the impact of those challenges that they may have had on residents who exercise their right to vote. For many people, voting absentee is not just a convenience, it's a necessity. It's often tied to work obligations, health concerns, or personal circumstances. Challenges to the ballots can lead to confusion, frustration, and in some cases, disenfranchisement. And this undermines the trust in the electoral process, and it's something that we should be striving to strengthen and not weaken. And so I encourage those who initiated those challenges to the absentee ballots to consider making a public statement to clarify their actions. This transparency could help restore trust and allow voters to better understand why they chose to disrupt the normal process of normal processing of absentee ballots on November 5th. And it's my hope that we can continue to uphold both the letter and the spirit of democratic participation as a community, ensuring that every eligible voter's voice is heard and respected. And congratulations also to the winners of that election, including Marjorie. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Good evening. My name is David Moore, 4 Stevens Way. My wife Zelda and I have lived here since 1987. I've never been on town council, but I will say genuinely I appreciate all the work that the members of the town council do, this town council and previous ones. And I hope that in that context, all of us will respect not just the work that this town council does, but the work that previous town councils have done. And as we all know, from my understanding, a previous town council has approved this overall project. We've gotten grants for it that are quite substantial. We've got the money to, apparently, the town administrator has identified the funds that would be able to pay for it. And so the only question now is pay for it without raising additional taxes to the taxpayer. And so the only question now is whether we should go forward with it or put it off. And one argument is that, yes, it's more expensive now than what the town council, who had approved of it originally, had thought it would be. But everything is more expensive now. We've all gone through this inflation. There is no project today that would not be less expensive if it had been done 2 or 3 years earlier. We just know because of inflation. So I don't think there's any reason to assume that the previous town council would have had any different decision to make. They made it on the basis of the merits of the program. And so my argument today is really to support really the notion, I think, that Representative Smith brought to us, the importance of continuity. I do think that as much as possible, we should see continuity from one council to another, for subsequent councils to respect the work of previous councils. It is important, I think, for the reputation of the town as it seeks further grants in the future. And the grantees themselves need to know that their work is coming to a decision for the town will be respected by the town and not summarily rejected by future councils. Also, all the people who have worked so hard to bring a project to fruition and see it just about there, I think need to be reassured that their efforts will also be respected and not just rejected by new council. So in some respects, I think that the vote by the council on the Bickford Chesley House is not just about the renovation, but in some sense it's also about the council's view of the governing process itself. Do we respect the views of previous councils? Do we recognize the hard work that they went through to make their considered judgments? And are we concerned that if this council came up with a project and got it fully funded, that another council next March with 3 new members might say, oops, let's not do that? I think there needs to be more respect and continuity for those decisions that are made by council. So there are many other positive reasons why this project to restore the Bickford Chesley House has reached this stage, and other people have addressed those comments. My hope is that all of us will continue to respect not only the work that this council is doing, but the work that previous councils have done as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Carl Van Assel. I live at Fairchild Drive. I have to say this. The years I spent on that side of the table, I never heard that many compliments in all those years as you guys get me. And not only that, Beth Olshansky's here to guarantee that. Hey, listen, I got a couple of things, and I have some notes that I made, if you can pass those out. Totally unrelated, but this is a good time of the year to do it, I guess. Poor Wayne Burton heard all these before. One relates to the downtown TIF district again. I think I came 4 years before the council, and it never changed. That doesn't make them bad people, but I couldn't convince them. But at the moment, when we have the TIF district downtown, we take the money, a couple $1 million, and we put 93% of it into the general fund, and we put 7% into the TIF fund. And I'm urging the council, when I urged them before, when you do it that way, and Todd has an explanation, and he and I can laugh about it. But when you do it that way, what you're doing is you're sharing it with the school and a little bit with the county. I have a real problem understanding why those buildings downtown impact Oyster River. Beyond me. But anyway, that's only me. So I made some notes here for you, and you can read them. My question tonight, Sally, what I really want to do is, I figured it was a good time, I'm always late, is to ask you not to change it for this year. It's too far along, and Todd's put a program together. But I really think the council ought to make it a work idea, a work program project for next year, looking ahead to 2006. I really would love to see an evaluation of how we distribute that money again. Look, if there were no needs downtown, none, infrastructure, business, all the things we can spend the money on, if there weren't any needs, I wouldn't be here with that topic. But there are needs, and I think it should be spent there. I won't give you Todd's argument. He'll give that to you sometime. But we agree to disagree on that one. The second one I want to bring is a much more at-the-moment kind of thing, and that's the town clerk's office. Again, budgets are budgets, and they're a lot of work, and your people are putting that in. I just think it's terribly important that the town clerk's office get fully funded, and in this case with 3 people. Look, I come down to the town hall at least once, often twice a week, as the town treasurer, and people walk out of the town clerk's office after paying taxes and they're smiling. I mean, gosh, I don't know how that happens. It happens because Linda and then Lori ran that kind of an office, and now Rachel runs it that way. And if they're fully funded, and I don't know, I think Todd can figure it out. If it means 3 people, then do it. It's not that much money in the long run, and it's I like this word for it. They're really the ambassador of Durham. That's who people go to see, whether it's taxes and water and sewer or motor vehicle. Heck, I see them coming in and out, all kinds of questions. So I hope when you put that final budget together, if you give them the full staff of what would be 3, I think they can adjust hours to serve residents even better, whether it's a couple nights a week or Saturday morning. It's like the post office. They ought to be open till 8 o'clock at night so we could all get there. But people work till 5. And I'd like to see you fully fund the town clerk's office. Finally, the third one, and this one I didn't have on my list, but after last night, I've got to bring it up. And Wayne and Todd, and you guys have heard this one before. We have to do something with the intersection of Garrison and Main. We're going to kill people. I know if people, when you come down Main Street at night in the dark, you cannot see people crossing from Garrison on the 3 ways they can go. And I had it last night where I should have hit 3 of them. I had a good shot at them. But fortunately, a car was going west, and I was coming on the campus to drive my grandson off, and I really couldn't see them. It was 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night. There is no decent lighting at that intersection. And when I brought this up several years ago, I was told, well, the lights we have there are historic. Excuse my French, I don't give a damn about that. I really don't. The lights we have are on the wrong side of the sidewalk to help see the people walking across the street. I don't care if you hang a big light up in the middle or if you put lights that shine down. There has to be a way to make that Garrison and Main Street intersection, it's a hazard. And my guess is if you ask the Durham and the UNH police officers, they would agree. It's got to be the most dangerous intersection we have in this town at night. And I really, really think we can afford to do something about it. At least I hope we do. So anyway, I gave you some work for next year on the TIF thing. The town clerk, Her and I don't get along, I might add, because we both, when we run for re-election, or ran for election a couple of years ago on that job, she got 2 more votes than I did. And she tells me that all the time. So I'm trying to make it up here somehow. But anyway, I hope, Sally, you guys will look at least those topics when you get time.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
John Parsons, 16 Stevens Way. Those of you that have been here for a while know that my career was at the middle school as a 6th grade science teacher and cross-country and track coach. We ran many cross-country meets and many field trips out at Wagon Hill when I was teaching and coaching. And occasionally, a parent or sometimes a spectator from another team would look at the building and say, "So what's happening with that building over there?" And I had to say, "I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that building." Back in 1989, when Durham voted to buy Wagon Hill Farm, we made the commitment to maintain properly the land and the buildings that were there. And we haven't maintained properly the building, that's the farmhouse that's there. I had another point to make and I just lost it. Oh well, it'll come back to me eventually. I'll circle back to that. The other point, oh yeah, I know what I was going to make. No, the other point that I was going to make deals with my time as a founding member of Friends of Oyster River Track. Those of you that have seen the magnificent track we have out there that took us 19 years to get built might remember, those of you who have been here for a while, how much effort it was to get that built. When we first started trying to raise the money, we were raising money in dribs and drabs, $5,000 here, $10,000 there, when of course we needed much more than that. One of our members, a UNH faculty member, had a lot of experience in writing grants, and he applied for numerous grants. And what we learned was that, and we got none of them, what we learned was that the people, the grant committees, would tell us, we need to see support from your town, from your school district in this case, before we're going to allocate money to you to build this track. The support from the town of Durham was there a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever, and I'd like to think that the support is still there. If we go back in this commitment, if we decide not to use that money, let it go back to LCHIP, that's going to affect the credibility that the town of Durham is going to have in the future when applying for grants. Well, why give them the money if they're not demonstrating the need to use it, or if they demonstrate the willingness, the support for the grant, they're going to turn around and not use it. It would be a waste of their time. So anyway, for those reasons, I would like to support the substantial restoration of the Bickford-Chesley garrison. Thanks.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
I'm Diane McCann, and I live at 27 Oyster River Road in Durham. And I just want to say that it seems appropriate to continue the hard work that the volunteers undertook to do this project. We just can't say no. Too bad for you. They didn't gain anything from this project, particularly for themselves. It's for us. And we sent all of you, we bring you here. I think you should respect the hard work and the past council members' interest in continuing the project. Thank you.
This is quick. I just remembered the other thing I was going to say. When we bought Wagon Hill Farm, there was a committee formed to study uses. And of course, we had all kinds of ideas in mind, but the committee was formed. I want to say Don Sumner was the chairman, if I remember correctly, but Wayne might remember. And so we came up with all kinds of recommendations, some of which were based on being able to use the building. And of course, in the condition that the building has been in, and of course is in now, there's no way we would have been able to use the building for any of those things. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, thanks to all of you that made your thoughts known to us tonight, and maybe we'll hear from some more of you when we get to the topic later in the meeting. Thank you. So seeing no one else coming up to give public comments, move on to our...
Is there anybody in Zoom who wants to give a public comment?
I don't see anybody with their hand up.
Go ahead.
So we have a report from our UNH Students Senate External Affairs Chair, Abigail Bagley.
Good evening, everyone. How are we? Sorry that I was not able to attend a couple weeks ago. I hope that you enjoyed Ben in place of me. I know he's on the YouTube watching right now, so he's enjoying this meeting as well, even though he's not here. I first wanted to extend congratulations to Todd on your award for Municipal Management Member of the Year. On behalf of the student body and student senate, we just wanted to congratulate you on your award. That's an amazing achievement, so we wanted to extend our congratulations to you. Just shows how much you do for the town and the university and working with us, so we really appreciate you and everything that you do. Not a lot going on as we're gearing up towards the end of the semester. Specifically, we had our very last tailgate of the year, so bittersweet for seniors, especially me. I was able to attend the Alcohol and Other Drugs Coalition meeting with members of UNH Health and Wellness, FSL, UNH Police, Fire, Paramedics, and Athletics. We talked about, the main subject of the meeting was regarding homecoming and different things that athletics saw in regards to engagement and different things that occurred during that weekend, but actually we very much shifted very quickly to Parents Weekend, actually being the more popular weekend now. Over the past couple years, we've seen a trend of Parents Weekend becoming more and more popular, and a lot more things happening on Parents Weekend with involvement with police and fire and paramedics and all that stuff. So it was very interesting to hear from both athletics, FSL, police, and fire about, why that's becoming a thing. So we really appreciate it. There was a question a couple weeks ago regarding the president's form on her website about the free speech workshops. I tested it through my laptop. I didn't need to log in for that form, but I'm also logging in under a UNH email. So I don't know if it may work now, if it's troubleshooted, but please, email us again if that form continues to not work for the general public, because then we will get in contact with the president and make sure that that works for everybody.
I did test that, and the form now works, so
Okay,
for the
perfect.
public as well. Anyone who wants to leave comments around the president's free speech working group, that form is now working for the general public.
And I know that working
Thank you.
group met on Friday and heard from people in the community and everything like that. So I'm glad that those conversations are happening, and we are figuring out a way forward. Yeah, that's it. But I'll take any questions if anyone has any.
I have one for you,
Yeah.
which is regarding kind of the drugs and alcohol. I'm wondering if you have ever heard of the organization Daybreak and looked at bringing that to UNH at all.
No, I haven't heard of that organization. I was proxying for our health and wellness chair, but you said it's Daybreak?
Daybreaker, I think. They organize essentially early morning health raves.
Mhm.
And the idea is you can get the whole kind of rave experience and the adrenaline rush and joy of that kind of experience, but in an entirely healthy way. So you start the day out with some exercise, might be a yoga class or something like that, and then they do like this mega dance party with a really healthy breakfast, and you kind of get the same high like you were going out on a Thursday night partying, but it's all through healthy ways. And it's been really popular like in cities around the world, New York, Seattle, Buenos Aires, London. it might be something for that committee to look at.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I will bring it up to our health and wellness chair and reach out to her about that. But, yeah, awesome. Thank you. Anything else?
We're good. Thanks
Perfect.
very much.
Very short one this week, but that's okay.
We have no unanimous consent items tonight or committee appointments, so we'll go to our presentation items. We have 3 presentations tonight. The first is from our Commissioner Chair, George Maglaras, and Ray Bauer. And if tonight's like the past visits from these gentlemen, then there's a lot for us to learn tonight.
Well, good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the Durham Council. Let me just start off by thanking the people of Durham for returning me to the Board of County Commissioners. Like Marge Smith, well, I'll let you know how I feel about that in another 3 months. But I appreciate the support that's been shown to me by the people of Durham over the years. I'm recently elected to my 21st term on the Board of County Commissioners. So we were asked to come in to give you some idea of what's happening on the county level and to talk about what's happening generally speaking. As you all know, and I had an opportunity to review Durham's budget, all governments in New Hampshire are in for an interesting time here in the next year. We have similar pressures as a result of inflation and workforce issues. The cost of health care is rising for our employees, and with that all, of course, everything is on the table in terms of our budget. Now, our budget's due to you. The Commissioner's proposed budget's due to you January 15th, and we have already begun that process of reviewing our expenditures. I think it's important for us to point out that during the pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, the use of the American Rescue money and the CARES Act had a great effect on the people of New Hampshire, and as well as county government. We spent a little over $3.5 million upgrading our communication systems, which you folks take advantage of. It's a state-of-the-art communication system now. Kind of brought it out of the dark ages. But those types of things that would not have been able to happen if we hadn't had the American Rescue Act and the CARES Act. Now, with that said, as you mentioned, you heard Representative Smith mention about New Hampshire. There's been a number of actions taken by the state recently that are going to create some huge budget issues for them moving into the next biennium. One of them was the elimination of the interest in the dividends tax. It's had about a $300 million impact on the state's budget. Right now, privately, Governor Sununu has indicated that he wants to fill no vacancies and is asking for cuts in all departments across the board. I can tell you that those cuts, some of those cuts, are going to trickle down to us in some form or manner. We just don't know yet. It's premature to figure out what those cuts might be. And of course, he's leaving office. We've got Governor Ayotte coming in with her budget presentation. But we've also been told, not only for our county, but for all counties, our contribution to the Medicaid system. Right now, counties pay for long-term care Medicaid, or at least the non-federal share of that. And we have activities going on in Washington at the same time that will affect Medicare and Medicaid. So we've got a lot of things going on here at once that has a potential affecting the county budget specifically. Those things we've been very fortunate to keep the county's budget for the last 14 years under the tax caps of the 3 municipalities. Durham automatically and the towns automatically benefit from that activity because we're able to control expenses. And in the last 3 years, we've been able to get a budget passed under the rate of those caps, what the caps allow us to spend, because we don't have to meet those caps by state law, but we've done it because we know that the people of at least the 3 cities and have asked us to do that. So it's rather premature for me to speak what kind of budget impacts we're going to have at the county level because of all these variables that are taking place right now that are beyond the county's control. But I can tell you, I saw that you folks had like a 12.5% increase in your health insurance costs. The county has a similar issue. We're in the middle of the negotiation right now with our collective bargaining agreements with 4 unions. Our employees have been very, very good at, in some cases, taking less than the rate of inflation, not counting COLAs or any of that type to help us continue operations. And I'm very proud of the fact that they've been able to do that and have helped us in that regard. But we're looking at about a 10% increase right now in our health insurance costs, even though we have shopped it, and even though we've looked at even becoming self-insured, which we've done in the past. So we've got some pressures there. Now, I know that Durham has not had a ton of increase in value. However, that's not the case throughout the whole county. The county has had increase in property values in other communities, which Durham, of course, will get the benefit from as that tax is finally formulated by the Department of Revenue Administration. I wish I could be a little more specific with you. I'd be happy to answer any questions, Ray and I, but it's really premature for us to do that because there's still some information that we're waiting to receive from Concord and from Washington. Yeah, well, I probably should mention that the county has been working with the mayors of the municipalities, and of course the towns are a benefit of this, automatically get a benefit that's regarding the warming center that's housed in Somersworth. Now, the county's acting in a fiduciary capacity at the request of the 3 municipalities to administer the contract for the warming center. And we've been able to position ourselves here in Stratford County to have the county draw down some additional state funding as a result of being a county operation to help support that effort. Now, as a result of our managing that over the past few years, we do have a slight surplus that we're going to be using to help offset the costs of any potential homeless situation that takes place throughout our county. Durham automatically becomes a recipient of that. Our contribution to that fund, the county's contribution, covers the cost for towns like Durham. So we won't be asking you for any money for the warming center, even though we have experienced several folks from Durham who have come and stayed at the center. That's up. I signed that contract a few days ago, and it's open. It'll be open. It's officially open now. We're just waiting for weather events, so we wanted to let you know that. The cities of Dover and Rochester have contributed almost $70,000 apiece. The city of Somersworth is providing in-kind services, police and fire, and ambulance services that may be necessary. And the county, through our state, I'm able to draw state money down, contributing about $100,000 for all the towns. So that's how that's working right now, if people are curious about what the finances are of that. But that's how it works. So there's, beyond those cities' responsibilities. One other thing that I want to quick to mention is that in the past few years, as you all know, that we've been discussing the construction of a new nursing home here in Stratford County that's sorely needed. I'm not quite sure how that's all going to work out, whether that'll become a reality or not. But I can tell you that whatever efforts that we can make at the county level, working with municipalities and the towns to curb our affordable housing issue, we're more than happy to assist in any way that we can in that regard. We have seen a ton, when I say a ton, a huge increase in elderly who have become displaced, who no longer can afford to live in apartments. They've been evicted. In the municipalities, we've got a 5-year waiting list to get into any form of subsidized housing. It's going to be an issue that we're going to have to face as a state. And let me give you another quick number, and then I'll get off the podium and answer some questions you may have. But here in Stratford County, we have a little over 15,000 people right now over the age of 65. Within 20 years, we're going to have 60,000 people over the age of 65. Now, that's not George McLara's talking, that's the Office of State Planning telling us. And the state has been meeting with the counties to try to determine how are we going to handle this influx of the baby boom population as they get older, and the services that they're going to need. At present, roughly, and this is a national statistic, about 8%, 7 or 8% of folks over the age of 65 will need a nursing home in some form or manner during their lifetimes. So all you have to do is the math. The math is pretty obvious that we're going to have a crisis of aging on our hands within a very short period of time. It's not going to go away. And so one of the things we're trying to do is to work with the state to create what's known as a PACE program, which will keep the elderly in their homes as long as possible to keep them from being institutionalized, with the expansion of home and community-based services for the elderly and chronically ill, to try to keep them home. We have found that in doing so, and this program, believe it or not, is paid by Medicare, will be paid for by the federal government, because what they're looking to do is curb the cost of Medicare. Because we got all these baby boomers that are going to need medical attention. So they're interested in coming up with unique ways of keeping folks home as long as possible. With the advent use of technology, with telehealth, with more frequent home visits, with doing things like installing ramps for folks and installing handicap bathroom rails and things of that nature, doing home assessments for free. And, you know, believe it or not, most folks don't want to go to a nursing home. They'd rather stay home if they can. And so these types of programs, the federal government is really interested in expanding. There are states around us that are doing this now. New Hampshire hasn't done it, not to the extent that it needs to do it, but they're speaking to the counties as to what we could probably do in a partnership to have that occur. So that's some of the things we got on the chart. I don't know if Ray wants to add.
I just want to add one thing. Despite the physical problems that we have at Riverside, one thing I can say with a certain amount of pride and self-service is the fact that we're one of 7 nursing homes in the state of New Hampshire that's 5-star rated. And that's certainly not a tribute to the building. It's a tribute to the staff that runs that building and takes care of the residents that are there. The star rating system is based primarily on inspections. Secondarily, it's based on your quality improvement, and to a smaller extent, it's based on staffing. But to receive a 5-star rating, only 10% of facilities, and there's 78 nursing homes in New Hampshire, so only 7 to 8 nursing homes can be a 5-star rated facility. So I know that sounds self-serving as the administrator of the nursing home for me to say that, but you know what? It's not me that's done it, it's the staff that's done it, and I truly appreciate that, and they frequently don't get the recognition for it.
Councilor Lund, you had your hand up earlier. Did you want to start?
Mr. McLaren answered my question,
Okay.
which was about the county nursing home.
Okay. Councilor Wheeler?
I have two things. After listening to your comments, I intend to delay getting old. But the other one is, I read an article today, which is famous for raising questions, but Florida is losing population because of all sorts of reasons. And they listed the 5 states where all these people from Florida are going to move. Texas was first, of course, but New Hampshire was second. And you may want to go back and challenge your statistician to see how flexible your projections really are in light of some of the other economic events in the country and weather events in the country.
Right. Well, you bring up a good point, Counselor. You know, in New Hampshire right now, we're 60,000 housing units short of demand. 60,000. That's been one of the reasons why our real estate costs have been driven up. There's a lot of reports that the National Association of Counties have done regarding the fleeing of folks from populous states, like 2 states that have a favorable tax situation. Now, we don't like property taxes. It's the tax that folks hate to pay. Out of all the taxes in the world, they hate to pay the property tax. But because we brag in New Hampshire that we have no sales or income tax, folks around the country see that and they go, well, we gotta run to New Hampshire. We have one of the least crime, the states with one of the least crime rates in the country. We have the 6th highest per capita income in the country. So we've got some good things going on here, but with those good things, when you start advertising, you got people that want to come here. And that presents another set of problems. We're going to have to grow our way out of this. I don't know how that's all going to occur. Some municipalities have taken an aggressive move towards housing, and some have not. It's kind of a mismatch across the state when you look at it. But with a demand of 60,000 units statewide, you can be assured that the cost of housing is going to continue to be high until that pressure is relieved somehow. Now, there's a number of ways that could happen, but that pressure is going to be with us for a while.
And that 60,000 number is what it is now. It doesn't include anybody who might want to move here.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yep.
I will tell you that places like the city of Rochester, as an example of, Stratford County, not geographical neighbor, but neighbor in terms of the county, has taken a real aggressive posture under Mayor Callahan to do a lot of work with affordable housing, and kind of set an example, which Dover and Somersworth have been following, as the cities.
Two things. One is you mentioned 15,000 people over the age of 65 currently, and in 15 years, what did you say?
Within 20 years, it'll be almost 60,000.
60,000, okay. The other thing that you mentioned, thank you. The other thing that you mentioned was that the increase in values. Now, Durham residents have seen big increases in values in their properties, but haven't seen many new developments. And in Dover, of course, you see a lot of new developments. So when you said that the increases in values in the region are going to benefit Durham, is it because of all of the new properties built elsewhere that our taxes may actually go down, and our share of that amount
your share of the county
goes down
tax
as well?
will be adjusted, and your share of the statewide income, the statewide property tax would be adjusted. That's a formula the DRA uses. They bring everybody up to 100%. So whenever you have a community around you that's growing, leaps and bounds, Dover, of course, being one of them, that adds to the county's overall tax base, which allows us not to have to raise so much in property taxes, which is reflected in your bill when you get.
So the recent bill that we've seen does show a decrease in that county contribution that Durham residents have to make.
You have a smaller slice of the pie.
Right.
Thank you.
First, I would recommend you check out the Shoreline Village of Connecticut. It is a nonprofit model for helping elders age in place. that's quite innovative. So the Shoreline Village, Connecticut, that might be a helpful thing in this discussion as you're thinking about that. I was wondering, in addition to using the heating centers, have you begun discussions of cooling centers? Because we're going to see increasing numbers of hot days, and I think as we're planning new infrastructure, we need to think forward and begin to anticipate that in New Hampshire we will need cooling centers as well.
The $100,000 that we received as the state grant actually takes effect, goes from July 1st to June 30th. Right now, you're absolutely right. It's mostly focused on the warming centers. But there is a certain residual amount of money that's maintained by the county, not that we can use it for any reason, but as the fiduciary in this, that can be used as a cooling center if it's needed. So yes, we've thought about it. Although the RFP, for those of you that might have seen it, focuses on the cold weather, there is some residual money yearly that the county maintains that could allow, with the permission of the city of Somersworth. It's an odd situation. Buildings located in Somersworth but owned by the city of Dover. So with the agreement of those two municipalities, that facility could be utilized for that purpose also.
I've also had discussion with the mayors regarding cooling centers in the three cities. They have made available cooling centers, and they have done this in the past few years. They told me they're going to continue to do so. Now, in terms of smaller towns, a lot of small towns don't have the resources to be able to do that. I'm not quite sure what the university would be doing in that regard, but I can tell you that the cities are doing it. And one of the small towns up north was doing it as well. But their idea of a cooling center was going to the town beach in Milton and get everybody at the beach there.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's
but that kind of works. But at least that's what they were thinking about doing anyway. So.
And my last question was, have you been discussing community power perhaps?
Yes.
For the county of Stratford as a budget means, a ways of saving money for the county, but also for thinking about affordable housing and helping bring down the overall housing costs, which are of course rent or mortgage plus utilities. So you mentioned you're discussing it currently?
We just met a couple of weeks ago for community power, but the county goes out to bid for its power. So right now our rate's just a little bit less than the average rate that was talked about for community power. So we've been, fortunate in that respect, although honestly speaking, we're in the, I guess, middle throes of looking very closely at a large solar array, which could very well not only exceed our needs, but we could actually become a vendor. So we're operating under a federal grant right now to help us plan that and to help us plan the acquisition of additional grant money, which would be a long-term savings, for the county, as well as a possible revenue source.
And also on the community power issue, the county is going to move forward in that process where the small towns of Stratford County can take advantage of that. The actual residents themselves, the county would actually be in a fallback position to offer those types of rates in a very, very volatile market, as you're probably aware. But two other counties have already done this in the state. We kind of stole the ideas from them.
Yeah. I believe it's now 4.
Yeah, they're in the more rural sections of our state.
And congratulations to the town of Durham for leading the way in that. I saw the statistics. Even though I don't live in Durham, I lived in Lee for a lot of years, and Town Administrator Selig's been kind enough to include me on every Friday mailing, which I greatly appreciate, kind of keeping up with local events. I saw that you're winning the contest.
Congratulations for that. And certainly, I'm sure that's to no small effort of Todd being as he has been recognized with his recent award. So congratulations for that also.
Thank you. Well, excited to hear what else you guys are working on in energy assets and to the benefit of the county. So thank you for sharing that about the solar array, and community power can be a great way to fund that. So looking forward to hearing.
One thing we have at the county is land.
Councilor Burton.
I'm getting a sinking feeling. I'm the only one in the room that's going to be voting on the state budget, the county budget, and the town budget, and try not to get run out of town.
Yeah, really.
My question to you, though, is, as you know, we house deportees up at the facility, and there's all kinds of language coming out of Washington that they're going to do a massive deportation of illegal immigrants. Do you think that's going to affect your facility?
Let me tell you, first of all, it's a misnomer that we house immigration, ladies and gentlemen who are in custody simply because they don't have the proper paperwork to be in the United States. We house criminals. These are people that have been convicted of crimes in mostly New Hampshire and are awaiting to be deported as part of their criminal sentence. So we've stayed out of simple housing of people that are being deported simply for not having the proper paperwork to be in the United States. We might hold them for a very short period of time if they're caught crossing the border from Canada, but that's just up until they're moved to another location. So I guess it's going to depend on the focus of the new administration. If their focus is to move criminals, again, these are convicted. I'm not talking about anybody that would say it's a criminal to be in the United States because you weren't born here or don't have the proper paperwork. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who have committed actual felony level crimes, have served their time in some federal or state institution, and as part of their conviction have agreed to be deported. Those are the ladies and gentlemen that we hold on behalf of the federal government.
What was most impressive was the care you take of the people and their families.
We are the most inspected jail in the United States, I think. There's no system of inspection of county jails in New Hampshire. We're inspected 4 times a year by immigration. So no matter what you might hear about them not caring about the people that are in their custody, that's not our impression. They're very. Those inspections are as challenging as the nursing home inspections, which are tremendously challenging.
The good news is that the new sheriff graduated from Oyster River High School, and she's a native of Durham. So we're looking forward to working with her as a delegation.
And we've only met her briefly when we invited both candidates to a commissioners meeting. So we're anxious for her input.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have these great 2 gentlemen with us right now. We're full of information, and just want to make sure councilors don't have any questions about the kinds of things that the county does for Durham. Okay.
I just point out that people don't know that their budget is bigger than our town and the school district combined.
It's about $75 million.
It's a huge operation, and it includes grants to nonprofits too.
Yes, it does.
That is very important, that those agencies be kept going too.
The nonprofits that we focus on are entities that have something to do with saving the county money, keeping people at home with homemakers, which is now run by Easter Seals, as an example, and other entities that help keep people out of nursing homes or out of jail, frankly.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just want to note how exciting it is that a Durham resident will soon be working with you as county sheriff. And this is a person whose parents have showed a long history of community service. Her dad was the town treasurer for many years. She was a police explorer when she was in high school at Oyster River with the Durham Police Department, became a Durham police officer for many years, went on to become a chief, and now the High Sheriff of Stratford County. That's Catherine Moan. So I think you'll really enjoy working with her.
Well, we're looking forward to it.
We're looking forward to it.
And at any time you folks want to invite us back.
It doesn't have to be once a year.
No, it can be whenever.
We don't do anything else on Monday nights. We're happy. Monday night football is the only thing. As long as the Buffalo Bills aren't playing on Monday night, I'm all set.
But we should
We
also.
could probably dedicate one of these screens to that, right?
That would be great. Yeah. I grew up there, so and that's one of the things that I've even though I haven't lived there in 55 years, it's still one of my fondest memories to attend the games holding my dad's hand and walking to the old War Memorial Stadium in downtown Buffalo. I've never missed an opening game in 63 years. So
We had some tough times when I was a Patriots fan, but that's
if that's the only thing we had to disagree about, we're doing okay.
I need to congratulate George particularly. He survived the at-large vote. We've been meeting as a delegation to figure out, because for the first time you had to compete at large, and the makeup of the commissioners have changed.
Yes, it has.
And we'll be watching that very carefully to make sure the spirit of Stratford County is maintained.
Well, I appreciate that, Wayne, very much.
Thank you very much for
Okay.
joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks for the invitation.
Hopefully we didn't talk too long. I know I'm holding everybody else.
Next, I think we have a report from Agriculture. Teresa Walker. Oh, there she is. Great.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you. Boy, you've already had such an action-packed evening. I'll be really brief. This is the annual report of the Agricultural Commission. It's been great to have Councilmember Curtis Register join us this year. He's been, I know, reporting back to you every time you meet and what we've been up to. So I'll just provide a brief recap. I'm sorry, I think the annual report I did for the town report, I don't know if it was shared with you in your packet, but this past year we had a really successful farm day. I think it was our 11th annual farm day. Hundreds and hundreds of people participated, touring farms and gardens across Durham, Lee, and Madbury. It's been such a successful event, not the least of which I have a great partnership with university system and their farm system, and opening those to the public. And so that's become a key kind of annual public outreach for them too, on campus for their farms. And this year we were joined by the Granite State Dairy Promotion, who also took advantage of Durham Farm Day to promote local food production and milk production. So that was a great event. We held a focus group with several residents from different neighborhoods across town to ask them questions specifically geared towards backyard and collaborative food production. We're interested in kind of stepping outside our own commission bubble and support for that type of work to hear what residents think about it. And we're going to use the feedback we receive from them to develop a survey this year, or probably institute next year, a broader survey of Durham residents asking their thoughts and concerns about collaborative and backyard scale food production. We'll be working with UNH capstone students on that. So we submitted an application to the sustainability program on campus to have capstone students help us pull together that survey and implement that. So we'll be working on that on the coming year. Other things that happened since I last saw you is it's a great commission with lots of knowledge and a lot of dedication. So there's been a lot of mentoring of residents interested in beekeeping and neighborhood scale food production. So that work goes on. And I think in the coming year, in addition to that survey, we'll have another farm day. And I think we're also just really vested in our mission, which is working with the planning board and you and other town boards and commissions on and having policies that enable more food production at the local, here in town, at whatever scale people feel comfortable, because we really believe that is an important part of the resiliency in Durham, is to enable that local food production. So that's our report for the year. Thank you.
Any questions for Teresa?
Just want to say thank you for the work that you do. I think it's so cool that we do have farms locally here in Durham and in the surrounding communities, and having grown up in Exeter and watched as that area lost all the farms in Stratham and so forth, I think it's such a wonderful thing that that our little kind of three-town area still has some working farms, and I think the dedication of the commission has really helped support that, so thank you.
Well, thank you. I think that's why we asked the council to establish it, is so that interest had a seat at the table. But I'll defer to Councilmember Bubar, who was an early member of the commission and really cornered, he thought of if we had a motto, it would be, if you eat, you're in, right? We're all eating. As we all know, how food is produced and where it's produced is changing drastically. And so I think in the case of Durham, if we can just make sure people have the opportunity to produce food for themselves and their neighbors, that just makes us an even stronger and more attractive community to live in, I believe. So thank you.
It's still scary, Teresa, that you have to explain to cashiers what a particular vegetable is. I think there's more education that should go on at the school level.
I think, as we all know here, when you're on a volunteer board that meets once a month, I know you guys meet more often, it's hard to keep moving that needle forward. But I think just being able to have an ag commission who can participate in the review of ordinances and things like that, so we can keep raising our hand, because I think a lot of the vision that drives us is not things that are concerning people next week, but we're talking pretty, farther down the road. And so we believe that's of value to this town, to keep raising that flag.
And I really like the cooperation or coordination, I guess I should say, with the Lee Agricultural Commission and the breakfast that you put on there, or they put on.
Right, yep, the annual Farm Bureau breakfast with Stratford County Farm Bureau. Yep, thank you for that.
I heard you say backyard farming, and is there any effort for front yard farming as well?
Yes, I think that's just a term, right? Yeah, front yard farming. And thank you for calling that out. I think we've worked with Michael on the planning board and Paul for a long time looking at how gardens and other food production are kind of constrained by zoning. So certainly front yard. I think we have found, not through trial and error, just from hard experience, that it's animal husbandry is where the friction really lies with farming. And like I like to say, people love farms, they don't love farming. So I think a lot of the focus we've had the last few years as a commission and then going forward is to find that comfort level in town with animal husbandry being a component of food production.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you guys very much.
We have Kathy Leach from Parks and Rec Committee.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here again. As Sally mentioned, my name is Kathy Leach. I'm the chair of the Parks and Recreation Committee, so this is our annual report. I submitted a written report to you all. I just want to make note that was the one that would have been sent to you. I was supposed to come to you in September, so that's a little bit older than where we're at now. So I'm not going to go over all of it. I'm just going to highlight some things, but there may be a couple updates from that as well. So I thought I would start by just saying what our committee purpose is. You can also find this on the town website. We serve an advisory role on procedures for Rachel Gasowski and her staff as the director of the Durham Parks and Recreation Department. We can make recommendation on parks and programming to Rachel and help to plan with Rachel and staff to meet the future needs as the town grows. The committee's goal is to support the DPR goals to strengthen the community experience through a broad range of recreational, healthy, fun, and enriching opportunities. I think, as you all know, public recreation plays an essential role in fostering a cohesive and vibrant community. So in terms of what has the committee been up to this year in 2024, probably our biggest project has been continuing on the community needs assessment in the visitor use management study. We've been working with, that has all been conducted by UNH ARC, which is the Applied Recreation Research Collaborative, with Professor Michael Ferguson and Matt Fry, and a graduate student researcher. So the needs assessment focuses on 2 parks, Jackson's Landing and Woodridge Park, and also a little bit on recreational programming through DPR, including, I'll get to the survey in a minute, but the survey had questions about perceptions, barriers, future needs and wants, potential funding models, things of that nature. There were a couple methods on how the ARC group is getting that data. They held 3 focus groups for us. Primarily for Woodridge Park. For Jackson's Landing, they did something called a pop-up survey, which is where the graduate researcher was actually at Jackson's Landing asking people as they were using that park. But the focus groups, which Rachel and the committee helped to gather the people for, thought about who the group should be that were part of those focus groups. And those focus groups informed the ARC staff to be able to create the population survey. And so that, and then the committee members and Rachel worked a lot with ARC over the course of, I'm going to say maybe a month or 2, in really developing that survey to have it be what we needed and what we felt we needed to make, the town needed to make decisions moving forward for recreation. So the data, so that survey went out on June 1. It closed in about mid-August, so there was a pretty good time frame that was available. Professor Ferguson has reported to us that it was a strong return for this type of study, and he thinks that he has very usable, high-quality data that will result in a representative sample of responses. So they're very happy with the way the data turned out and the number of the survey responses, so we really want to thank the community for being a part of that. Current next steps is that ARC is currently in the data analysis phase and probably by now drafting an initial report. And then next steps are final report prep and outreach presentation. So ARC will consult with the Parks and Rec Committee during the report draft phase, and then we'll conduct presentation to interested parties. We are assuming the town council will be one of those interested parties. And that will probably start beginning in late spring. I think the May timeframe was suggested for that. So what can we expect to receive at the end? We'll get a technical management report, which is kind of the big picture, using survey data, again, on the perceptions, the general support or opposition toward future infrastructure or program development specific to the 2 parks. Also for some of the questions that were related to programming. This helps the town, as we all know, understand our constituents' wants and needs. And then another part of it will be, they call managerial guidance, which is based on the survey data, where they will actually provide recommendations or based on what the community wants. These are the things we would recommend in these parks. It may be things for where and how to invest our funding or resources in longer-term planning considerations. So after that, the DPR staff, probably some of the town staff in the committee, will consider the recommendations and really begin the work of developing a specific plan for the parks that may include necessary funding for infrastructure improvements, equipment or element purchases, programming, shifts in programming. So that the committee likely won't begin that work until probably end of the summer of 2025. So that may be something, well, I think it probably will be something that will start in 25 but work its way into 2026 as well. So that's it for that. So the other thing we did, and this was based upon last year at this time, there were questions that came up from the council about priority registration, or resident versus non-resident user fees, were there differences? So a subgroup of the committee took a few months to talk through it. We did some analysis with other towns. We looked at 9 similar towns. DPR does provide priority registration and different user fees for many programs, both for kids and adults. And this was what we found was in line with other towns. So given the information from Rachel on her programming, as well as the similarities with the other towns, the committee didn't provide any further recommendations, and we also, fully support Rachel in making the decisions based on her historic, current, and trending knowledge. So those were kind of 2 of the bigger things the committee took on last year. Another subgroup of the committee worked, and the DPR staff worked with the Land Stewardship Subcommittee to create more awareness of some of Durham trails by facilitating 3 Discover Durham Trail events. And the last one just happened last weekend, I believe, and those were well attended with over 80 participants. So I don't know if that'll be something moving forward, but I'm sure it'll be something that we will be talking about moving forward. We have at our monthly meetings, Rachel always gives us an update. Annually, we hear from Bill Rink. Just gave you that name. You should be named that. Bill Page, the Churchill Rink manager, on things that, how are things going there. And so in both instances, programming is up, participation was up. The rink is open now, so everyone kind of look at what's going on there. And Bill and his staff are also have a rink committee, and they're currently working on potential designs for a rink renovation, as well as a feasibility study to determine fundraising capability. I'm not sure the feasibility study has started quite yet, but that's at least next to happen. Yeah. Okay. So lastly, I did cut this short given the lateness of the hour, so I'm skipping through all the things I crossed out. So lastly, I just wanted to say, like Teresa did, we have a great committee. It's a full committee for the most part, and a really high level of engagement by the members. So I really want to thank them for all that they do for the committee. And lastly, as a committee, we are really happy to support Rachel, her staff, and the department in whatever way we can. It's a very energetic, committed staff. They continually impress us with their ability to manage the workload, as well as balancing kind of daily tasks, with also programming creativity and a constant focus on how to best serve Durham residents. So I said lastly, but I have one more thing. So we do have 2 alternate member positions open. If anyone listening at home would like to join us, please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, ma'am. I'm Curtis. I just wanted to say I really enjoyed the latest Discover Durham Trails that was conducted.
Stevens Woods?
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
My son and I, my wife and my dogs went out and had a good educational section about lichens.
Lichen, right.
And it was, Jeremy, I think it's Birkenhowland's kid, did a great job
Good.
talking through the whole process about lichens. He was trying to get people to grab them and feel them and stuff, and so that was fantastic. And I would be very excited to see something like that make another comeback.
Good. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Jeremy is also Al Howland's son, who is on our committee.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Just need to give Al a little attention there. Yeah.
Any other questions? Great. Thanks for being
Thank
with
you
us
all very
tonight,
much.
Kathy. Thank you. All right, we're moving on to unfinished business. We're going to start with opening the public hearing on ordinance 2024-10. This is primarily has to do with dimensional standards, agricultural uses, small changes that are being made. If you're here to address the public hearing for workforce housing, that's the next item. So this item does not address workforce housing. So I'm going to go ahead and move that the Durham Town Council does hereby open the public hearing on ordinance 2024-10, amending Chapter 175 zoning, Article 3, administration and enforcement, Article 6, zoning board of adjustment, Article 12.1, use and dimensional standards, Article 20, standards for principal uses, and Article 20.1, standards for agricultural uses. Is there a second?
No.
Second.
Okay. So is there anyone here to address this part of the zoning ordinance? Is there anyone on Zoom?
There
Not
being
here.
none, I move to close the public hearing.
Okay. Is there a second to close the public hearing?
Second.
That-
Second from Council Register? All right. All those in favor, let's do a roll call vote. Should we do that? We opened and we went straight to without a vote, which I think is okay. When we just had a motion to close, correct? So we probably should vote on that. Okay. So, and I'm gonna link the two motions together in your vote. So let's do a roll call vote. Mr. Revere?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Earl Ford, aye.
Curtis Register, aye.
All right. So that public hearing is closed. Is the council ready to take an action on those changes? Or do you want to put that off to a future meeting?
Well, I have one question, which is, I'm wondering if we can combine the two rows. We have separate rows for childcare home for not more than 6 children and childcare home for more than 6 children. And I was just pulling up the ordinance in front of me again to see if we couldn't just say childcare home and have one row. I don't know, if maybe Michael wants to come up.
Fine, sure.
That would be a minor adjustment too, so it wouldn't have to be.
It's just one less line of text.
Okay. Okay. In that case, I'm willing to move. The town council does hereby adopt ordinance 2024-10 with the amendment just suggested, amending chapter 175 zoning, article 3 administration and enforcement, article 6 zoning board of adjustment, article 12.1 use and dimensional standards, article 20 standards for principal uses, and article 20.1 standards for agricultural uses. Is there a second? Second for Councilor Ford? Okay. Any further discussion? Yes?
Yes, in the category of uses, the only commercial property that we have in Durham is now suggested that freestanding small group net metering is permitted as a use. And I just raised the question, I'm raising the question of taking up valuable downtown land with surface-mounted net metering solar panels, which would be a very unproductive use of downtown land, I believe. I think they could go elsewhere, perhaps on top of the buildings like some others. So I do question having those permitted by right.
It was something we discussed both at the Energy Committee and the Planning Board, and both are in agreement with that sentiment, which is why originally it was not permitted there, but then in actual use case scenarios, what we found was the example of some churches in the downtown area where it's very valuable downtown real estate, but they actually own, 2 adjacent properties, and being able to net meter on land that, that they have. So it's a situation where, yes, it would not make sense to install a larger array there because that land is very valuable in terms of what it could be used for. But where that net metering is supporting businesses that are located right there downtown, the opportunity to be able to extend those benefits from one business or one property, one lot to the next lot adjacent to it just makes sense and made financial sense in this case for one of the churches to be pursuing, but they were not able to do it because of the way our ordinance was written. So it's something we considered, but understanding the actual use case scenarios we were seeing downtown, as you said, just given what the property tax value is of that underlying land, we couldn't imagine a scenario where someone would take something that would otherwise be used for parking or for a new building and putting a solar array on it. but rather we were seeing real use case scenarios of actual downtown properties wanting to pursue this and being unable to because of limitations in the ordinance.
If the church is going to do small net metering, does that mean they're going to start paying property taxes on that land and those solar panels? I mean, it's generating revenues, I'm assuming.
No. We'd have to take a look at that. I don't know.
Yeah,
Was the public hearing closed? I didn't.
Oh,
It's for their own
yeah, the
use.
use case we have for that is the St. George Episcopal Church, which they own a rectory, which is technically a separate lot, and this change would allow them to use the solar panels on the main church property and use some of that electricity for the rectory.
The answer,
So
though,
it's not going to the general community, it's just going to their
Right,
property?
yeah, it's going to another
yeah.
parcel that
It's a
is
very
owned by the
different
same entity.
scenario than what I guess I was hearing.
so that net metering, it's a little confusing, that term, but the way that net metering is established in New Hampshire, at least for commercial and residential use at this scale, is that you cannot generate more electricity than you yourself would use. So nobody would be allowed to build a small solar array that was actually producing excess energy to sell back to the grid downtown. You have to use it as, you can only use build enough array as the amount of electricity that you yourself would use. So there's not an overall profit to it. I'm not the best person to explain this, so I don't know if that was helpful, but.
And it's not being really sold to anyone, so it's, you know, they could have done a lot line adjustment and just merged the lots, and then they wouldn't have had an issue, but.
Yeah, please.
Wait, again, I'm not familiar with the particular plan of the church, but typically with solar arrays that are being used for private property, we would determine the value of the array and then we negate that, and it doesn't add to the value of the property as a whole, because the town years ago was desirous of incentivizing the installation of solar arrays, so the value of the array doesn't count in the assessment of a house, in essence. So.
Well, but again, that's not net metering, as I understand it. But that's all right, it doesn't matter what I understand.
Is the confusion on the net metering, just the term itself suggests that you're
sharing.
You're sharing. It doesn't.
Yeah. And whether you're sharing and bartering or however you're doing it, it seems to me it goes beyond your residence. And that is contrary to what Todd just said, where it was, we're trying to encourage this at an individual scale, either residence or business, but individual. And so there's a greater value that I perceive in net metering, and I'm not trying to discourage net metering. Just trying to understand what's in it for the town.
That's fine.
And if there's nothing in it for the town, that's an easy answer to give me.
So net metering is the.
Thank you. I mean,
So let's
yeah, I mean, it was a simple question. I got a simple answer. That's all I need.
Any other discussion before we vote? Yes?
Just one minor point. Under the ordinance, as it's listed with all the whereases and now therefore be it resolved, this is ordinance 2024-10, but the resolve says 2024-08. So we might want to change that.
I'm looking at where, just so we know where that.
This is on the page after the last motion.
Right.
Which is the page with the relevant whereases.
I'm just looking at the
bottom paragraph.
Yeah, the last.
Oh, okay, I see, okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Make sure that gets fixed, okay. Thank you. All right, anything else? Ready to vote? All right. I'll start. Cy Nadell, aye, and we'll go that way.
Joe Friedman, aye.
This is the vote as amended by
combining of the...
The two lines in the
Two
table of
lines.
uses.
Yes.
Okay. Aye.
Eric Lund, aye.
Darrell Ford, aye.
Curtis Register, aye.
Heather Grant, aye.
James Bubar, aye.
M. Friedrichs, aye.
Okay, sounds unanimous. All right. So next. I will open the next public hearing. I move the Durham Town Council does hereby open the public hearing on ordinance 2024-09, amending Chapter 175 zoning, Article 2 definitions, Article 12.1 use and dimensional standards, Article 18 personal wireless service facilities overlay district, Article 19 conservation subdivisions and zoning map, and adding a new Article 18.1 workforce housing overlay district. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this ordinance?
Second.
Oh, second, sorry. Oh, yeah.
So vote to open the public
We
hearing.
have vote to open the public hearing. Let's just do a quick, we're good.
Aye.
Okay, any of those opposed? All right. Sorry, I got so excited. I'm ready to move. All right. Anyone here to address workforce housing?
Nobody.
Hello, I'm James Tobias, and I am a resident here in Durham. I currently live with my parents, though I would like to be able to live in my own place. I want to live here in Durham. I like the town, and I one day want to be able to live here with my girlfriend and have a family here. But I can't live anywhere because there's no place that is affordable for me. The only way I can stay in Durham is to live with my parents. And I don't think that is good for me and good for them. I also want to stay close to them so I can stay with my family. And I don't want to live in a student apartment. And I don't want to have a family and grow a family in a student apartment. And if there's no affordable housing here for me, there's no future I can build here for myself.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ashley Vogler. I'm an employee of John and Maggie Randolph. You probably know their projects. John and Maggie's housing projects give way to a place to call home for so many people in our workforce. Their innovative housing removes barriers for people to live where they work, leads to career opportunities where they wouldn't be any to have, and they do it sustainably. They make our community stronger, and Durham is lucky to have them in their neighborhoods. They work directly with organizations to get people back on their feet, whether it's because of illness, refugees fleeing from their country, or women affected by abuse, and housing is their foundation, literally and figuratively. Students in this economy are facing so many challenges post-graduation. They have an education, but they can't afford to live. We have an employee in my department who graduated a year ago, and she couldn't afford to live where the jobs are. She now has affordable housing, thanks to Maggie and John, 10 minutes from her job where she can be set for success. I have a friend who had to live with me for a year despite having a leadership job in a corporation, and she still couldn't afford to live alone in our community. She now lives in a tiny home only a few miles from her job and her friends. There are countless more stories that show the positive impact that John and Maggie's housing efforts have not only had on our workforce, but also their families and the economy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Casey Dillon, and I actually live in Lee, New Hampshire, so I'm not actually from Durham, but I would have liked to have lived in Durham if I could have afforded it. I have been a resident of Lee for the last 18 years with my husband and my 3 children. We're very invested and involved in the Oyster River District. I work as a physician assistant in the area. I also am a professor, and it probably wasn't until maybe 15, 16 years into my career with a master's degree and now a doctorate that I could have afforded to move into a place in Durham. I have a long history in Durham. I went to UNH, graduated in '99, and left to go get a master's degree. And when I looked to come back, nothing was affordable to me as a physician assistant, married with children in the area. It is an incredible community that we live in. Durham is, again, near and dear to my heart and to our families. We love living in this area. and love the people here. And I think the value that affordable housing, workforce housing brings to the area is, I can't say enough about how much value it does bring. I also work at the hospital, I want to say quickly, at Wentworth Douglas in Dover, and work with a whole lot of nurses, LNAs, medical professionals that cannot afford to live in this area, so live in Maine, drive an hour to Massachusetts, maybe move over to the Rochester, Somersworth area. And I think that's just a shame because they have so much to offer our area. And I think when you live in a community that people can't afford to move to until they've worked 20 years or 40 years old, we're missing a whole generation of people that can and need to contribute. So thank you.
Thank you.
Is there?
Yes?
Real quick comment, Ms. Dillon. We met virtually once, but I really want to thank you for coming out and making your comments. And I'm really grateful for the NST support you've been doing for the resettlement of refugees, and the fact that you're a physician coming to make your comments makes this much more meaningful in regards to getting this passed.
Thank you, Curtis. Yes, we met on Zoom once. Nice to meet you in person.
Hello, good evening. My name is Catherine Goodwin. I am a current member of Newmarket, but in 3 days I will be a house owner in Lee, New Hampshire. And so my husband and I, we live there. We're going to be moving. We just bought our first house, which is super exciting and very, very expensive. And last year, my boss at my work, I'm also a physician assistant. I work in Manchester. My boss actually made fun of me unintentionally for living in an apartment, because we lived in an apartment in Newmarket for the last 2 years when we moved up here. We moved up here because my husband got a job in Durham, and then we were unable to find housing in Durham, which was very frustrating. Luckily, Newmarket was right down the road, and there's a ton of housing there for workforce. It might not be zoned as such, or whatever you want to call it, semantics, but I live on Bennett Way for the rest of the week. And, and so that whole line, if you go down that road, tons of apartment buildings. I recently had a conversation with my coworker when we were carpooling out to Manchester. She lives in Stratham, owns a house there. She's a single mom she's a nurse, now a nurse practitioner. And she was commenting on how she probably wouldn't have been able to live in a house in Stratham if it was, 2024 when she did it. She moved there like 15 years ago. But then she made the comment that she did not want any workforce housing. We were talking about tonight. She didn't want any workforce housing to be built in Stratham. And so I looked at her, I was like, why not? What is it about it? And she's like, well, when you have kids in school, you'll understand. And I was like, no, wait a second. You're talking about me, you're talking about my family, you're talking about my neighbors. And I just wanted to encourage everybody that if you're scared of the people that will be brought by workforce housing, please don't be. Those are very wonderful people. They're the people running the basis of our society. And they're my neighbors right now. And guys, we don't, I'm not going to tell you where I live, but we don't lock our doors. You all live on Bennett Way. We don't lock our doors. We feel completely safe. Not at night we do, but that's, different story. But it's wonderful, and you get to see your neighbors' kids grow up and run around and play. And it's a great community building aspect. And we have, and we talked earlier about the housing shortages for the elderly population as they age, and to age in place. Sometimes that might look like aging in place in your own place, but having a neighbor next door that's in their 20s or 30s and can help you change your light bulb. Those sorts of things. And so I think it's going to be really a beautiful thing if we can bring this to Durham. And I can attest to the Randolphs and the work they're doing. I've helped them do some painting in those tiny homes, helped them move people in and out of them. I work with Four Rivers Church and the refugee resettlement they do, and these are really wonderful, good people. They're not committing crimes. They bring so much joy into my life, and I really would love to see all of y'all smile when you get to meet these people as your neighbors too. Do you have any questions? Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Maggie Randolph. I'm here representing Harmony Homes, and I would like to give my support for the Workforce Housing Overlay District. I think that, that's such an opportunity, and I will speak from my perspective as an architect and having, the good fortune to have built a couple of affordable housing projects. And it's funny, we always get caught up on these semantics about what affordable housing is, what workforce housing is. There's all these terms. And as Catherine just mentioned, there's a lot of fear about what it is. But I am so proud of the tiny home community that we have built in Durham. And perhaps Dover. Dover. Oh my gosh! See, I'm excited about where I am. I'm moving forward. Thank you. But I'm very excited about it. We have 44 homes there. And out of them, talking about the people that are living there and who your neighbors are, we have 7 teachers. We have 2 firefighters. We have, 10 or more caregivers. We have healthcare professionals, postal workers, architects, because I would have been, just barely able to afford it as well as an architect in my last job just a few years ago, too. So again, these are, the backbone of our community. And I know I've said that at other public meetings and such, but it remains true. And I would be very proud to live next to any one of those people. So thank you.
Thank you. I actually went to see the houses in Dover. It was just yesterday. I was thrilled to see them. Yeah.
Well, just note that the Randolphs have constructed some workforce housing on the Harmony Home site.
Yes.
And that's a great project.
Hi, I'm Wes Dillon. I go with a wonderful lady there. And so we live in Lee, as she said. I'm speaking in my role as the lead minister of Four Rivers Church and then the director of Four Rivers Project, both of which are incorporated in Durham. I'll give you 2 perspectives. One perspective is in a church. It is one of the unique areas in our culture that draws from a broad cross-section of the region. And so we see people who are in our church that are young in their career, who are older, who are retired, who are professors, who are teachers, who are refugees, who are transient. And so looking at the broad cross-section, we have about 150 people that are a part of our church. We've sponsored 8 refugee families to come here. I can just say that this, I'm in full favor of this amendment. I think that it will be an incredible benefit to this community and to all the people that I interact with in my role with the church. The second perspective I would give you is how much I've seen this community love to be a part of solving problems. The first family that we sponsored was an Afghan family, and Todd let us put a little note in there to the community saying if anyone wants to be involved with welcoming the Afghan family. About 2.5 years ago, we thought if we get 2 or 3 people that help out with welcoming the Wall Azadas, that would be awesome. 120 people ended up being involved with that, welcoming that family. People like Janet Perkins, who provided all the prenatal delivery and postnatal care to the mother. We had people come and knock on our door and say, "Hey, I have a TV. Can I drop this off?" It was amazing to see the embrace, and so I just anticipate that kind of a welcome from the broader community. We just love to solve problems like what we're facing with affordable housing. So offer my full support and on behalf of my role there in leading the Four Rivers Church. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mike Mulhern, 91 Baghdad. I've been in front of you before for a different reason. But first of all, I want to say thank you very much for all of your support to our community, your volunteering, your expertise. It speaks volume for your heart and soul for Durham. I am also on the Durham Housing Task Force. I should let you know that. I'm quite involved in affordable housing in many different ways. There's a couple of things that I have been reading that I kind of want to just bring out. Workforce housing, as Maggie had mentioned, is, well, actually, affordable housing has many different definitions. Workforce housing works off of the 60% average median income. That's $80,000, approximately $80,000 in our community in Stratford County here. That is not low income. And we do not have housing. These are for policemen and firefighters and nurses and teachers, which are the backbone of the foundation of our community. So I just, when we talk about affordable housing or workforce housing, we think probably a negative connotation on it. It's not. It's you and I. It's average $80,000 annual income for a family of 4. I do want to say that the other piece, I do believe we have a moral responsibility towards affordable housing. This is our community. I've been in Durham for 6 years. I want nurses and firefighters and policemen and teachers to be my neighbors. So I come from a firefighting family. My dad, my brother, my uncle, all firefighters. They couldn't live in Durham. So I really, really encourage your support for workforce housing, and I appreciate all the work you do for our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Beth Olshansky, Packers Falls Road. I've written a long letter, which I'm not going to read, but I'll send it to you later. I'd like to speak about the ordinance as a whole, because I support the concept of workforce housing. I support parts of this ordinance. The part that I don't support is throwing 3/4 of Orly into the workforce housing overlay, which was an add-on to the original concept, and I understand I was told that it was because the state is asking communities to put 50% of their residential land into workforce housing. I don't think that makes a lot of sense for Durham. I am excited about the unique opportunity we have across from Harmony Homes with a sort of simpatico in the location, being so close to a couple different service places in our community and near Route 4, but off of Route 4 and all of that. I think that project offers a lot of good potential benefit to everybody. I don't agree with making all that huge land in Orly part of our workforce housing overlay. I think this is a new project. One of the things I've learned having watched the planning process over the last 25 years is as good as we think an ordinance is, there's always going to be some adjustments, some loopholes, something, and let's start small. I like the idea of the Keefe property becoming workforce housing. I also like the new focus on the downtown, which I know is not part of this ordinance, but the Housing Task Force is working on it, and it seems to me that if we focus our energies on those two circumscribed projects, areas, it would just be a more controlled, thoughtful process than just opening up to everything. And I feel that bringing Orly in goes against a lot of what our master plan talks about in terms of keeping our density closer to town. Smart growth principles, which I know Todd has also mentioned in his letter of August 7th. And I just would like to see this particular overlay brought in, contained a little more for our first run-throughs. I know when I've spoken about this at the planning board, I was told don't worry, we just put Orly in there to meet the state requirements, and we'll sunset the ordinance, as soon as we get another project built and feel like we fulfilled our requirements or whatever. But I keep thinking back to the Mill Plaza and how we were a few hours late in posting a public notice that resulted in years of court hearings with Colonial Durham and lots of stress in the community. I just don't think it's a good idea to create an ordinance zoning for something where you don't want it. And I didn't get that sense. Well, I know I don't want it there, but I didn't get the sense that the planning board was necessarily that enthusiastic about it either, but was just doing it to fulfill a requirement. And I don't know that that requirement has a deadline. I feel like if the town is in good faith working on an overlay district and some more zoning amendments for our downtown, that we are making a good faith effort. So I appreciate your hearing my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, Joshua Meyer with 7 Chesley Drive. So I think I've been at all the public hearings about this at the planning board. I've reread all the letters the other night and have gone over some of the minutes and so forth. So I wanted to just put in context the complexity of this for your consideration, and what I see as tremendous progress in the way the ordinance has evolved, but also some of the concerns that you have to grapple with. So I don't think that, you have these short comments about the need for workforce housing. I think that's obviously true. I don't think it's fear of the people who would move in. I think these are people we want to see. Living in our community, UNH faculty, grad students, teaching assistants, researchers, police and fire professionals, healthcare workers, people who work at Harmony Homes, Riverwood, service workers, teachers, and also I'd love to see, as I mentioned many times, the planning board, younger participants than me at planning board meetings. I think we could use more young citizens. And also just to mention that we kind of had a paradox here, which you guys certainly know about, but maybe not everybody listening knows about, and that there's sort of a shadow plan underlying this general ordinance for the interest of the Randolphs at Harmony Homes for buying the Keefe property. And, I've heard complaints from some people that this is then too much helping a particular developer. But I think it's overwhelmingly refreshing to be working with developers who have a good reputation and reflect our community's values. And I think that we have to balance what we want with what might be the maximum that they want to have the freedom to do with their property. But I think they've been actually pretty flexible on that. And so I think that this is very promising, and I think it's exciting, especially after spending 9 years of my life fighting developers who did not seem to have the interest of the community at hand. But at the same time, looking through the concerns that people have raised, and particularly what Beth said about Orly, that she estimates about 75% of Orly, and the issue of the master plan and protecting our rural gateways. And also people have raised the issue of the large number of households being added in a short time, basically about the size of the whole faculty neighborhood if it goes to full scale, and still uncertain impact on the school budget and property taxes if people move in. Now, so my focus has been on, since Beth and others have raised those issues so eloquently, my focus has been on to think of this really, given the scale, as a new Durham neighborhood, and what's the best type of neighborhood that we could make it be. And there's been a lot of progress in types of things that I mentioned, and that is, imagining connections. It's not really that far from downtown, frankly. The Harmony Homes driveway is 0.5 mile from 108. And if they could be a hiking and bike trail from the Keefe property, again, you know, this double thing here, we're talking about a general ordinance, but also a specific kind of shadow plan that has not been applied for. But it's a general principle of anywhere we have this, to try to make the connections to downtown as multi-transportational as possible. Not just driving, but hiking, biking. And that there was a plan to have a trail through there some years ago from downtown, actually all the way to Portsmouth. Any part of that that could be brought back, and I think that the Randolphs would be supportive of that. The concerns of the Agricultural Commission about turning prime agricultural land into housing, we don't really have lined up people wanting it to work as a farm, and the Randolphs have expressed interest and willingness to have the 60% of the open land be turned to some form of farming, or at least community gardens. There's the issue of, if you were to consider about the mix of the housing, initially there was sort of freedom for the developer to do as many bedrooms as they wanted, but if they went all 3 bedrooms, that would mean people would be more likely to move in when they have kids and move out when the kids are out of school, and that's not what we want for taxes. So I think it's moved in the right direction with limiting the number of 3 bedrooms so that single people who just hired in the area can move in and then upgrade, stay in the neighborhood, think of it as in a neighborhood, and stay in the neighborhood as they get married and have kids, and then downsize and stay in the neighborhood. Think of it as a neighborhood. And about some recreation there, issues of public access, the various incentives that the planning board has put in there. Would there be public access and so forth, and connections to existing neighborhoods and to downtown. So I think those are all good, but I do, I'm kind of excited about it, at least in relation to that shadow project that started this conversation, but I do really think it's a risk of endangering things in all of Orly, and I don't know how to answer that. I wonder if there's another way to get another legal opinion on this issue of just changing that large property to whether that's really a violation of zoning and spot zoning and so forth. I think that this is the conundrum that I have. I think it's evolved in a very good way. It's an exciting underlying project. What can we do with it to protect the goals of the master plan, and also not to undermine the long-term goal, which Todd has written about trying to do as much as we can with workforce housing downtown, especially in light of the still coming and already here enrollment cliff and so forth. So those are the issues, that things I see as very positive. The other thing is as things to pay attention to, and I think the issues that Beth raises need to be grappled with. We don't want to threaten our basic values, but otherwise, I look forward to a lot more available housing and more neighbors to participate in these meetings. That give me more of a break. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joshua. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
Good evening. I'll try to keep my thoughts really short because I know everyone's dying to be somewhere else. But I'm John Randolph. I own Harmony Homes and GSD Communities. Durham has been an incredibly welcoming community to Harmony Homes for its residents and its staff over the last 13 years. But a lot has changed in the last 13 years. You really need to make $30 an hour to rent an apartment in the Seacoast. You need to make $160,000 a year to buy a house in the Seacoast. That's a tremendous challenge. Harmony Homes in the last 13 years has grown from 2 employees to about 90 right now. We want to grow to 250. You heard earlier the commissioner talking about the upcoming wave of seniors that are coming. We would like to build 2 more facilities in the business park, but we can't do that with current staffing in the state. And I'm not talking about one business's aspect. I'm talking about businesses across the spectrum, as well as our services that stand behind us, the firefighters, police officers, DPW, and our teachers. I spoke to the former superintendent of schools and asked about the challenges of getting teachers to come to your school district. He's like, it's a tremendous challenge for them to take jobs and not be able to live within the school district. It's a big challenge. Getting people to come to Durham and work in Durham and live in Durham is a privilege. It's a great honor. It's a great ability to serve this community. But we need to embrace the people that are having a hard time living in this community. One point I'd like to bring up is that the way it's written right now is 60% AMI. So that's actually an average 60% AMI, I think is the way it currently is. That's actually $60,000. So it's a little bit lower than some of the numbers that we were talking about earlier. So that would be an average of that. And that's a really tough number. That's about that $30 an hour point that I was telling you about that's really struggling to live in the community. But the ability to average that is a great tool because you could have some people slightly above it, slightly below it. It would allow a more diverse community there. So I think that's an amazing tool that you shouldn't give up on. The commissioner brought up a lot of good points. We're going to see a quadrupling of our seniors over the next decade or so, from about 150,000 in the state to about 600,000 in the state. He was just talking the county numbers. And we're seeing a significant increase in seniors that are 65 to 70 years old that want to live on their own, that are getting forced out of their apartments by seeing rents double and triple. We're seeing that on a regular basis, and we're seeing a struggling of getting rooms for them. We're seeing an increase in them in homeless shelters and everything else. And so this is also that wave that's coming is going to be struggling to keep up with the prices of apartments as well. That's my comments, and I certainly support the action. Thank you.
I have a question.
Question? Yes?
I'm not an expert at this at all, but in following it through the eyes of some landowners. As you know, an overlay district removes much of the regulatory oversight of a site. From a developer's viewpoint, and it should give both the developer and the owner flexibility that it doesn't otherwise have if it weren't an overlay district. Does this give you, the way this is written, the flexibility you think needed to close a deal? Because that's the whole purpose of the overlay district. Does this language do it for you?
Well, I'll be honest, at 60% AMI, you're not going to get developers lining up for 60% AMI. And that's just the number range that you're trying to work with. Most developers are working at 80 or 100% AMI in the area, and that's kind of the really tough point to get to that. We offer a little bit of a unique opportunity in that we're looking to grow this housing to support our community as well as grow our staff. It was one of the ways that we can support. I think Todd brought up earlier the project we did at Harmony out on Briggs Way. Now houses 7 of our staff and has 9 childcare slots in it. So we have to kind of bring a unique approach to this. I'm going to answer your question, I promise. But we have to bring a number of facets together in order to make this work. Most developers are looking at upfront profit. So they come in, they build something, and they want to make 9% or 10%. I'm fortunate enough to be married to an architect, so I get a reduction in her fees and everything. And then I serve as a general contractor for our staff and collect 0 salary. So Maggie and I are able to reduce our cost by about 25%. I bring this up because we can build housing at 60% AMI. We just proved that we could do it in Dover, and you can bring in a good solid range of construction and everything. So I promised I'd answer your question, but did I?
From a developer's viewpoint, you'd like to see the 60% reduced?
No. Reduced? If it got reduced, I think it's nearly impossible. Oh, hey. Right. Right. So the HUD fair market is a number that I probably should also be using. Is it's equivalent. We use the terminology squared off HUD fair market and 60% AMI because they're closely correlated and everything else. Am I still missing your question?
No, my takeaway is you believe the ordinance is written, you can work with it.
I believe housing can be built, quality housing can be built with 60% or HUD fair market, yes.
And you can't speak for an owner, but you think that owners will also come to the table.
Well, it depends on the circumstances, but as an owner, I own 54 Back River Road in Dover. I own the tiny homes in Dover. Maggie and I own those, and we did it as the GC and the owner. So what I was trying to get to earlier was that we push the profit into the future. We don't make a profit now. We're hoping that they eventually cash flow and they appreciate, and that's how we make it happen.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me. I've heard others and yourself talk about people being forced out of their apartments, like, rates going up, etc. And you're talking about $30 an hour. Are these old people? I don't know any old people, but are these old people who are being forced out? Don't walk away on me. Are they people on like Social Security? Because they don't make $30 an hour. How
No,
are you
and
going
I-
to get them into your units?
Great point. So I'm going to separate those two issues. So when I say $30 an hour, I'm talking about our workforce, the people
Correct.
that are out, people that are out fixing our cars, fixing our teeth, taking care of our children, taking care of our seniors. So if you're trying to make it under that living wage, then, and I say living wage in this area, that's really what you need to get to in order to afford an apartment in the area. Because you look at about 30 to 33% of your pay should go to housing. If you're getting an apartment in the area at $1,500, you got to make $4,500 a month. So that's roughly that equivalent. Switching over to the seniors, most of them are on a fixed income and they're struggling. It wasn't that long ago, I owned 4 Water Street in Newmarket and I rented 1 bedrooms at $750. Someone came along, offered me a ridiculous amount of money, and a year later, no one's living in that building under $1,800 and stuff. And so, I mean, they've more than doubled the rents in that building, and the people who live in that building, 2 out of the 3 were on fixed income and are no longer there and everything. So, I mean, I honestly had no idea that rents were going up that rapidly, but you're seeing that across the spectrum, and the seniors have no ability to adjust to that.
And are you saying that under this ordinance, you will be able to provide housing for those seniors who are being displaced?
I think it would be part of the community. We want it to be, we don't believe in age restriction. We're not someone that wants to put 55 and over in one side of the town and,
No, I wouldn't.
and everything else, stuff like that. But we have, I think, some 70-year-olds in our tiny homes, and we have 70 down to 18.
I just think, you made the comment about, well, maybe we'll have some units at 40% of HUD or AMI, whichever number you like. But that also means you're gonna have some folks at 100, 110%. So you're blending to get to 60%.
Right.
And I'm just wondering how low can you afford to go, or how high are you going to have to go? And are you going to have a mix of units that supports higher rates versus lower rates? Just how is that going to work out?
Well, there's a little bit of a challenge there. I think what you have created here in Durham is unique. I mean, in Dover, we have a cap of that, meaning we can't exceed 60% or the HUD fair market. So
Okay.
if we give a number underneath that, it's just a lost number.
Yeah.
So that's a great tool that you have, because we have applicants that are making $150,000 a year, husband and wife team that are applying for a tiny home in Dover, and we kind of tell them no at first, and they go, we can't find any place else, because that's not really our target audience. If I had the ability to offer them an apartment at a little bit more above HUD and somebody else below HUD, the average would work for the community. So that's the target effort. I mean, we've talked, and I've been part of this probably going all the way back to January, on how do you average it, how do you do all these sort of things. I think it's, there's certainly tools that could be reported back to the town to show that was achieved. But if you want a blended community, you're looking for somebody that makes $150,000 a year all the way to $30,000 a year. That's what your community should be. And so that's going to naturally happen. I'm just telling you that we get applicants in the range of somebody that makes, $18 an hour to $150,000 a year in Dover. And everything else, it's shocking to me, but it's true. And we get plenty of, our original target for the tiny homes were 18 to 25-year-olds, because we thought that's what they were looking for, something small to move out of their parents' house from or from college. We're shocked at how many 55 and over are looking to downsize. They're telling us stories about that our tiny homes are for rent cheaper than their town taxes are on their current property and stuff like that. So they can move into a tiny home cheaper than they can continue to live in their house that's paid off in our community. What happens when they move into a tiny home? Another family gets to move into that 4-bedroom house that we're heating and keeping, with one person living in that house. There's a lot of factors there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think most of you know me, but for those who don't, I'm Sally Tobias, and I live at 107 Madbury Road, and I am also the chair of the Housing Task Force, and I'm on the planning board, and I have done my time around that table. And sometimes you need a break. And of course, I'm here to support the Housing Task Force. My journey in Durham did not start in housing. It actually started on the Conservation Commission, but and then it went to economic development. And it was through that what I started to realize back in 2016, 2017, going out into different workshops for economic development, we started to run across housing as a conversation. And even way back then, we started to realize or I started to realize that there's something missing. I moved to Durham. I had lived in New Hampshire. I grew up in New Hampshire. I lived in this area until I got married and moved away because I married a sailor. Military takes you all over the world. And I wanted to come back home. And home is the seacoast to me. And so I knew what Durham was when we chose to live here. But I never really realized what was missing until I was here a while and I started, talking to grad students and started to look around and realize it's a good thing I bought a house that's got an apartment because, my kids are going to be in it for a while. And you met one of them. He was very passionate about wanting to speak. I don't claim the mustache. I don't know what's up. But he, and I started to realize it's like Durham is missing a type of housing, a complete type of housing. We have plenty of places for college students, which are transient individuals, and have a very specific lifestyle. And we have a good amount of homes for elderly people. I know there's none around this table, but older people. But even if you start to look at our over 55, you had to have obtained a certain amount of income in your lifetime to afford them. And some of them are just completely cost prohibitive to many people. Riverwoods is not everybody's option, and many of the over 55 are to purchase, and they're not inexpensive. They're less expensive. Most over 55 are than the market, but the reality is it's not cheap to live here. And then you have a lot of single family homes that, again, you need to have a certain amount of income to afford. The Housing Task Force I don't think I need to remind any of you of the numbers that came out of the housing assessment and the results of the demographic that were missing. But we're not providing housing that allows people that love this community to stay when they no longer want to live in their 4-bedroom center into 2-store colonial. And but I find the most tragic is that we haven't built the type of housing that allows our children as they grow up to stay. We kick everybody out of the nest, including ourselves. If you have children and they may go away to college, they may want to come back, they may want to live near you. And I think COVID taught us that living near your family is a good thing. And multi-generational living has become, popular. It's a good thing because the kids can't afford to move out. But it's a good thing. And all across the country, you have people, I can name friends of mine that are still living in my hometown. It's normal to be raised in a town and to live in a town and to move out of your family's house and move into an apartment in your town. It happens all over the place. But it doesn't happen here because we don't have those options. And as the county commissioner, Mr. McLearis mentioned earlier, other towns are building. But what have we built lately? And that's a serious problem. And it's time to start to think out of the box and do some things. This particular ordinance has evolved. And I would say that if anybody is concerned about the process or what we came up with, go back and watch all those planning board meetings. The planning board takes things very seriously in this town, and I think that as a council, you are well represented on that planning board. Every bit of that amendment was grappled with and thrown through the food processor and poured into the soup, then strained and start all over again. We regurgitated over and over and over again and thought about a lot of things. The income averaging, so to speak, for the rent averaging was something that you're starting to see across the country that people are starting to hear about if you go to some of these housing seminars. I've been to a lot. And it's a way of addressing the issue of how do you get how do you get to that percentage point where you're going to need to create workforce housing? And it's awesome because you do have the ability to have somebody that's making $150,000, a physician's assistant or a doctor even that's new to the area can be renting, and their next door neighbor could be the guy who works at Circle K. And if you want to see people freak out, have the Circle K shut down, see how many people are like that. And those people are making $17 an hour. All right, so it's time. I think that nothing is perfect, but I think that this has really addressed a lot. And I think it's about as perfect as Durham can get. I think it offers us a first level of opportunity for housing. There will be more to come because this is not just a once and done. There's more things that we need to address because our zoning has pretty much blocked a lot of development. But it is time to think out of the box. In our commercial areas, such as Orly, maybe they could be better used for housing as well as commercial. And I think this is one of the best amendments we put through. And I may be, biased, but I do think that it offers a lot of opportunity in this town. And you're really lucky as a town to have people like the Randolphs interested in what they've done already in this town. They're really amazingly good people. I mean, they won't ignore, but they are. And I think that there's a lot of really good people out there. And I think that when you get out there and you start to go to some of these and you meet some of these other developers as well, there's a lot of good people out there. And we know what we need to do. So I know what you guys need to do. So please do it. Thanks. Oh, question. Oh, James.
Yeah. One of the very first emails that you received when you formed your task force was from me. And I had a very simple request. Can you tell me what the financial impact on the town is going to be? I didn't ask for it to be positive. I didn't ask for it to be negative. I just kind of wanted to know, what are we getting ourselves into?
The financial impact of
the ordinance.
Well, just for the assessed value of a piece of property with a developed property.
Can you put that down on a piece of paper and sign your name under it so we know?
I wouldn't know I personally don't know what the cost of the development would be because I'm not the developer. My job is suggesting the.
And that's only one side. You're talking about the revenue side. You're not talking about the cost impact.
All of that is all your site plan regs are there, all your requirements for, water, sewer, school, all of that is done in the site plan process.
DPW, police,
all
fire.
All of that is, yeah.
And so what you're saying is, well, we'll find out about it down the road.
That's what we always find out about with any development. It doesn't mean we don't develop. Anything else? Okay.
Thank you, Sally.
Answered my question.
Robin Muller, Britton Lane. I wonder if you might be willing to ask John Randolph a question for me. I'm impressed by the recognition that he and his wife are in an unusual situation in terms of the costs for developing because they have in-home expertise. And I wonder if the 60% average figure that's being used is something that would be workable for other developers, number one, and what difference it would make for them if it were a slightly different figure, 65%, a 70%. Because at this point it sounds to me as if we really are customizing an ordinance for this specific situation, and that has advantages for everyone, but it also has some disadvantages for the broader implications of this overlay district. So, thank you.
Thank you, Howard.
Can I correct something? There's some information that somehow is out here that's not correct.
The state defines workforce housing that is available for rent as being affordable to a family whose income is at 60% of the area median income for this region, Portsmouth, Durham, etc. But that is not what this ordinance is at all. That's totally not part of this ordinance. This is using a different metric, which is the HUD fair market rent. And this is generated by HUD annually. It's very easy to use, fortunately, because they have a different level for every size bedroom, studio 1, 2, 3 bedroom. And they update it annually. And so under this ordinance, for a project, depending on the size of the unit, that will be the maximum rent that is paid. So not 60%. It is 100% of whatever the HUD fair market rent level is. And the good thing is it's relatively high. So it makes a project more feasible for a potential developer. The flexibility that has been referred to is that the HUD fair market rent, which is 100% of HUD fair market rent, the planning board built in flexibility in this ordinance that the landlord can set different rent levels, 100% HUD fair market, 110, 120, but the average for all of the units cannot exceed 100%. So you take the percentages independent of unit size, and whatever those are, it cannot exceed 100%. So overall, it's affordable, but it gives you that flexibility. Sorry. Oh, that's all right. Yeah. So that's the flexibility. So it's 100% HUD fair market rent, but there's flexibility within that.
Michael, the county commissioner kind of confused me because he talked about in the beginning affordable housing, but then he threw in subsidized, kind of in almost a half sentence later. You're really talking about affordability, not subsidized housing.
Correct.
I realize that there are some state, I forget the term that's used.
Section 8.
Pardon?
Section 8.
Yeah, that could be used, but you're really talking about basing it on affordability.
Correct. And as has been said, these terms, workforce housing, affordable housing, attainable housing, subsidized housing, they can mean different things depending on the context.
Yeah.
And again, and I've conveyed this to the town council, workforce housing is the name on here, and later on I would like to talk with you about the name. Maybe calling this affordable housing, there would be some advantages, but it's semantic in the end. But
It just seems to exclude retiree. Well, workforce housing, in my mind, just says, well, I wouldn't apply because I'm not working. But affordable is a very different impression.
It's really semantic. I mean, even if we retain the name workforce housing, one of the goals is to appeal to the workforce, people we think of as our workers, firefighters, nurses, teachers, etc. But certainly the intent of this ordinance is to be available to anybody. The goal, though, is to be affordable to people of moderate means. But this would be available to anybody, working or not working, of any income level. Although if your income is low, you'd have to be able to meet the threshold.
I thought you weren't checking income.
We're not.
Okay. But there's no threshold to meet. They have to be able to pay the rent.
No, but the landlord will make sure, most likely, that you can support, that your income is 30%, 35%, so that you can meet that rent. But the town has no involvement in that.
How do you envision then the town following up that it's a 60% average?
Well, not a 60%. It would be at the average of 100% of HUD fair market rent. So I don't want to take a lot of time. I can speak as long as you like, but most likely the owner would be required as part of a site plan project to do annual reporting.
So the town would be involved in reviewing those?
Oh, yeah.
reports?
I mean, this ordinance says the town may at its option require it. And most likely, as part of any site plan, planning board would have a condition, annual reporting, to show you're meeting that.
Very good. Anyone else to speak to this topic? We've got a...
I'm sorry. I promise. I'm sorry. I don't want to follow you.
Hey, Peyton McManus, I'm at 54 Ross Road. Just a few things. So as a background, you know, we all know that Durham is desirable, and it's also exclusive, I think. With that exclusivity comes, I hate to say it, exclusionary zoning. And so there's sort of two sides to that. For us, it's exclusive. For the people who can't live here, it's a burden. And so what does that look like? For teachers, administrators, first responders, they might need to endure long commutes. They might need an hour on each side of their day to get up early and go home late. They might need to put their kids in daycare a little bit earlier and pick them up later. So for us, we don't see that. But for the people on the other side of that, that's real energy. So as I think about that, is it a moral right that people should be able to live here? And I think it is. But this isn't really driven by that. This is driven by a pragmatic need to provide affordable housing for people who are working and servicing folks in Durham. So while I'd like to say it's moral, it's really pragmatic. And we have situations where organizations and entities and companies are having a hard time staffing or recruiting or finding people to work. So when we enable this, we're helping those organizations grow and survive and maintain. So I included some, I sent out an email, I included some Zillow home, research, just with some growth of that. I compared it with some other towns. You can look at that. The growth is clear. In my town, in my neighborhood, I think we're topping out right now at about $950,000 for recent sales. So for an associate professor, I don't know if that's doable. 20 years ago, 24 years ago, that was possible. Right now, that would be very difficult. So, to the merits of the proposal, I would say adopt as written. I think it's simple, it's elegant. We baselined a HUD fair market value for the entire complex, but then there's a carve out that says 20% have to be at 80% or less. What does that do? That builds in diversity. On the other side of that, it also allows above that rent levels to come in. So there's diversity that's built in there. It's almost as if there's some self-subsidizing taking place within that development. So the reporting on that is also easy. We're not asking for income verifications. We're not asking for work verification. We're not evicting people if your income is too high. We're not evicting people if they no longer work. The reporting is very simple. It's very clear. You look at the development and you say, as a whole, are we at 100% of fair market value? And are 20% of those units at 80% or less? Very simple. The auditing isn't complex. As soon as you start to introduce that, you start introducing a lot of additional administrative costs. And what we're trying to do, I think, or the goal would be to limit those administrative costs wherever you can, because everything you do there, you add on. So is it a moral right? Is it a moral obligation? I think it is, but that's not what's driving this. It would be nice if it was. It's pragmatic. We need to have people working to help our parents, our kids, to age in place. That's what's important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Rasmussen. I am the planning board chair, but I'm here to talk about, not from the planning board's perspective. I want to talk about what you have on the wall over here. You've got goals, right? One of those goals, reduce transportation trips, reduce our carbon burden. We're not, and I want you to think of that and then take a look at our downtown. The people who work in our downtown don't live here. They come from Salem, they come from Rochester, they come from Maine. Those are long trips. Give them someplace closer to live. And that will also help fill those storefronts and things when school's not in session. You want to revitalize downtown? Let's get the workers here where they can, be here throughout the year, not just for 7 months out of the year. Those are my 2 points.
Thank you, Paul. Is there anyone on Zoom with a hand up? Do we know? Anybody seeing Zoom?
Yes. Alicia Magnifico.
Okay.
Has her hand up.
Hi, everybody. Again, I'd like to go back a little bit to the human costs and the human possibilities for this proposal. First of all, Alicia Magnifico, 426 Bay Road, and thank you very much to the Housing Task Force and the Town Council. I am a professor at UNH, although I am here speaking for myself as a citizen, not as an employee of the university. And I'm here to support the workforce housing overlay because I teach our future teachers. I largely teach seniors and master's students, and as many other people have already said, our town basically makes it impossible for them to stay here. I can tell you that as seniors and master's students, many of them are very much looking forward to moving beyond their student lifestyle, and they're going to be really great teachers. And it's not just teachers. Like you've heard, again, I have heard many stories of new UNH faculty who cannot afford to live in our communities. And I can tell you right now, as an associate professors cannot afford to spend $900,000 on a home, particularly associate professors who may still have a lot of student debt from getting PhDs. I collected a little bit of data from my current class. This is very limited data because I am teaching a class that is composed of a dozen seniors and master's students. I asked them a little bit about how much they were paying per month, almost entirely in big shared student apartments. 5 of them were spending between $800 and $1,000 a month, and that's including some students with shared rooms who are spending $800 a month. One of them was spending over $1,000, one of them was spending over $1,200, which means that basically the 3 and 4 bedroom apartments that are student apartments are going for like $3,600, $4,000 a month. That includes bedrooms that have no windows, that includes a lot of small shared spaces that haven't been kept up well. Every single one of my students has at least one campus job. Many of them have 2 or 3 to support themselves. 5 of them are living at home, and as was just mentioned, a few of them are driving almost an hour rather than living in Durham because they can't support themselves otherwise, and that's trips, and that's carbon, and that's a lot of extra time. I feel like also in previous zoning board meetings, there has been some bias towards thinking that parents are paying for tuition and housing, and at least with my group of seniors and master's students, that's not correct. About half of them have their parents helping them with tuition, about half of them have their parents helping with housing. 2 of them are completely supporting themselves through college, and this seems to be more and more true as they become master's and PhD students. And I know I'm talking a lot about students right here, and this is of course different in a lot of ways from talking about young professionals, but living in Durham and being at UNH are not leaving our students in good financial shape in their student housing. And then we are making it worse as a town community by failing to have affordable housing for folks who live and work in our communities and who do jobs like nursing and teaching. It is absolutely having effects on the school districts. I know that there are jobs in the area that have had far fewer applicants because straight up, many of mine go to Massachusetts, many of them go to Maine. Many of them go to smaller communities in New Hampshire because they do not feel like they can live here and support themselves and have future families. And many of them would love to be Durham community members, and we'd love to have them as our neighbors. So thank you for listening, and yeah, I support this, and they are also very excited to hear that town council is taking this up and that is taking their concerns seriously, because they want to be Seacoast residents, many of them. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom? No. Anyone else here would like to speak? In that case. What's that? Oh, did you want to make another comment? Please. 30 seconds on this.
I apologize. I just want to clarify one important point that's been brought up. Michael's brought it up, I brought it up in the correlation between HUD fair market and 60%. 60% people making 60% can afford HUD fair market is kind of the association. So when you hear those two interchangeable things, that's fairly important to understand that you need to be making about 60% or greater of the AMI to afford the rent that is looking for. And to answer a question from earlier, trying to build housing at 60% typically takes some sort of subsidy. Usually you're looking for tax credits, you're looking for those sort of things, and everything else. Those are tough to obtain right now. The state's got limited number of tax credits, those sort of things. But getting above 60% AMI, if you're starting to get in the 70 and 75%, you're really starting to exclude a lot of the people that we want to be involved in our community. So I think that HUD fair market 60% target is a great target, and the flexibility that Durham's looking to give on both sides of that, I think, is very important.
Can I ask him a question while he's
Yeah.
here?
Yes.
We've talked a lot about people who want to move here. We've talked about developers, but we haven't talked about the landowners. If I'm a landowner and I can make a lot more money selling 5 McMansions on my property, why would I want to go into your deal? Would I have to have an elementary motive to go with it? Or is the financial, will the person who's looking at selling the property make as much money working with you as opposed to selling it to a developer that builds million-dollar houses?
Well, look at, if we're going to use that particular example, I won't name any particular piece of land that happens to be directly across from a property that I own, but it's currently zoned for 8 single-family homes. You guys want to build 8 single-family homes on 120 acres in Durham? The cost to build a road to 8 single-family homes is more than people can afford. So, I mean, that's where that land, there's no water and sewer to that land right now. We'd have to bring water and sewer to that land. A developer is going to come in, if they came in and did that, they're not looking to build 8 single-family homes. They're looking to build 100 single-family homes, all in the $900,000 price range. So instead of doing that, what we've talked about is the density of getting more units and driving down the overall land cost per use. And so that's where you really have to average that out. But in all honesty, Maggie and I wouldn't be in affordable housing if the staff could afford housing in the area. We're very happy.
So the short answer is the owner could make as much money selling to you as they could if they were going to put it into regular housing. Is that correct?
I believe they would do very well, but ultimately the landowner would have to make a decision if they feel like they could advertise it in the Boston Globe and get somebody that wants to come up here and buy 120 acres and live in a single family home or build 8 homes. And I mean, if you're in developing affordable housing isn't where you go to make money.
Well, I hope they do go into affordable housing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask the question.
And I think that's part of the purpose of this whole discussion that we've had for going on 8 months now is what's the impact of the value based on the zoning of that land and everything else. If we can build affordable housing on it, the land has a pretty significant value.
which is of interest to the town council in Durham as we face our budget, right?
And I know there's been questions this evening about, what's the impact to the budget, what's the impact to schools. We've had conversations with nearly every single entity about the impact on the schools, the impact on, every entity here. I think that at the end of the day, you'll see itself even itself out and echoing it out, but Jim?
I didn't want to interrupt.
No, please.
I was just, okay.
Thank you, that's my answer.
Forgetting about the costs, I have driven on Route 4 and seen people waiting to leave Harmony Homes for quite a while. What do you think the traffic implications are going to be if you do this on the property we don't talk about?
So we have talked to DOT because that's, this is all for naught if DOT wouldn't let a housing, be there and stuff like that. And there may be some.
And they control both Route 4 and 108.
They control both. And the initial conversation we had, they would support the project and everything else and stuff. There may have to be changes or whatever else there, whether the lane goes one direction or the other, becomes 1.5 lanes in each direction or 3 total lanes or something. I'm sure you're going to have some change there and everything. When you're coming out of Harmony Homes, you don't want to come out of Harmony Homes at 7:30 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon.
Yeah,
I
know how that works coming from where
I try to avoid those 2 times and everything else. But that's one great thing about most of our employees are coming to work at 6 a.m., leaving at 2, or coming in at 10 at night. So the nice thing is most of our families visit, we try to encourage them to find times to work around Route 4 traffic so that we lighten the load, but our staff coming and going is off that schedule already. Anything?
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to ask one question to follow on Ms. Miller's comment. My name's Curtis. I don't think we've met. I have actually had some help from you and helping resettle a couple Ukrainians to work as a part of your team, so I'm very grateful for that. My question is just a reflection of hers. In your opinion, for yes or no, would this be a viable overlay district ordinance for other competitors that can't cut their rates as significantly as you guys can?
In order to get to 60%, most developers are going to look for some sort of subsidy. That's pretty typical. I'm not saying that there isn't subsidies out there, but most developers are going to look for something to bring it down to that. What I mean by that, whether it's a low-income tax credit or other credits that are out there, other funding sources. A HUD grant can lower your cost and everything else, and so 60% AMI I think is a buildable number. I think you can build and sustain it. Developers can't go into it with the philosophy of making 10% on building them. They have to have a longer term vision for it.
It would be more challenging but still doable. Is that how I'm understanding the answer?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Before we ask another question, I'm wondering about having you come back when we want to do further discussion to have our questions answered. Because it's 5 after 10, and we have one more public hearing to do. So if that's okay with the counselors, when we're ready to have our discussion, which isn't going to take place tonight, would you be willing to come
Gladly.
back? That'd be great. Would that be helpful? People have questions? We just because I'm looking at the time and the people that have been so patient tonight.
I would imagine that would be a priority for future agenda, meaning the next meeting or the one immediately following.
Right, whenever we have a chance to talk about this ordinance, then we would might like to invite you back.
Right.
It'd be helpful.
In that case, I would like to make a motion to continue this public hearing to, shall we bring it back at our next council meeting?
I think the issue right now is the budget, and it would be hard to give more time to this ordinance, I think, at this point, and also be able to know that we've completed the budget in the next 6 weeks.
We could close the public hearing, but have a council discussion on the whole vote at the next meeting.
But typically, if we want to hear from Mr. Randolph, we have to keep the public hearing open. That's why I'm suggesting we continue the public hearing.
Yes, please.
Well, it's a little different with the council.
Okay.
With the planning board, that's the case because it's a quasi-judicial proceeding. In this case, it's purely a legislative proceeding. So if the council wants to take feedback from a developer, residents, you could accept that feedback if that was your will.
So we could send an invitation out to either Mr. Randolph or to anybody for that hearing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we would also, we would also certainly welcome public comments, just not necessarily hold another hearing. No? Yes?
Oh, yes. But it would be helpful, I think, if all the counselors would kind of distribute to Todd for redistribution what maybe their questions are in advance. I mean, instead of
Sure,
having
certainly,
someone
yes.
come in here cold and saying, here's 20 questions, you got 5 minutes.
That would be fine, too. We could do that. Yep, so we'll put our request for people's questions as we've done before. All right.
Our next meeting is on December 2nd.
Right.
So,
Make a motion to
I'd
close.
like to
Yeah,
make
I'd
a
like to
motion to
motion-
close the public hearing.
is there a second? Any more discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Randolph.
Yes, thank you. All those, let's do a roll call vote. We'll start over here.
Curtis, register no.
Darrell Ford, aye.
Eric Lund, nay.
What's the motion?
We're
Motion to close the public
public
hearing.
hearing.
Wayne Burton, yes.
Joe Friedman, aye.
Sonia Dell, aye.
M. Friedrichs, aye.
James Bubar, nay.
Heather Grant, aye.
6 to 3.
Three
Three and
ayes.
6 ayes.
6 ayes, 3 nay.
That helps us all. Thank you. In which case, we have closed the public hearing. It does not keep people from coming to future meetings and speaking as part of public comments, just not public hearing. Thank you. So we have one more public hearing tonight. The town council does hereby open the public hearing on the administrator's proposed FY 2025 operating capital and special fund budgets. This is a motion. Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Second from Council Register. All those in favor, let's do a hand raise. All those not paying attention would like to raise their hand.
No, I was paying attention. I was looking at the clock and I'm voting no.
You don't want to open the public hearing.
I want to go home.
Okay, no, that's fine. Vote-
So I'm voting no. Don't
Okay,
open
that's
the
fine. I
public
didn't,
hearing.
so, all those opposed? Yes, okay. So, majority says we will open the public hearing. I will tell the people that are here from different departments that I hope you're here to hear what the public has to say, because we will not be addressing any department this evening. So if you feel like you want to leave after having sat here, but you also don't necessarily want to be dealing with us, way after 10:30. So just a heads up, I think.
I do have a monster in my bag, so I am prepared.
So anyways, public hearing is open? Yes,
Bringing up the
yes.
share, Curtis?
We'll take shots.
I'm just saying that I just appreciate your patience, but I don't think we're going to get to you to discuss the budget tonight. Do you have a recommendation?
Well, I'd encourage people to remain through the public hearing, and then we could see where we are. If we have 20 minutes to go, we could talk with, we could start.
We could.
Or we could wait until.
I think it may be valuable for those departments that are here to hear any public comments yourselves, but you work for the administrator, so if you would like you to stay.
Like everyone to
that's-
stay until we get through the hearing. See where we're at.
So-
Yeah.
All right. So, did we vote? Are we ready to go?
We did.
We voted. We're ready to go.
8 to 1, the public
Yes,
hearing
so
has been
that's
opened.
where, so anyone who'd like to speak to this?
Just want you to know I was pushed out of the nest. So, good evening, Robin Mower, Britton Lane. So over the weekend, I learned that the council held a discussion on October 21st about funding rehabilitation options for the farmhouse at Wagon Hill Farm. That discussion becomes critical during the evaluation of the proposed budget. So for that purpose, I will provide via email and separate from my comments tonight a near verbatim transcript of what I believe is a key portion of that October 1st discussion. I cannot call myself a history buff, lacking both the necessary passion and discipline, but for many of us, growing older brings a greater appreciation for the lives, accomplishments, and sacrifices of earlier generations. Most of our forefathers lived significantly more difficult physical lives than we can even imagine. We take our food, physical safety, shelter, and clothing for granted. But for most of human history, the land was the source of all those daily needs. In this era of all-consuming digital lives, with artificial intelligence taking over even our daily communications and devouring enormous amounts of water and energy that we need to survive, we risk much by turning our backs on what makes us human. One key to our future must be to anchor ourselves in the land and to remember our past. My observation is relevant to Wagon Hill Farm. It is not just a place to sled or camp or walk trails or take selfies next to the wagon on the hill. The wagon represents a farming past, just as the farmhouse itself is integral to the land and to its history. Opening up the farmhouse to public education would underscore that link. So the statements made by Todd Selig and Wayne Burton echo my own thoughts. That is, with the help of grants obtained through the generous efforts of a volunteer, we now have an opportunity to bring history to life for future generations, to honor an agricultural and cultural heritage that stretches from indigenous to colonial to contemporary eras. I am in favor of building into the budget and CIP an investment in option 2, if not option 3. But I'm not done here yet. I have a few more arguments. A few of you will remember that in 2014, I introduced a town council resolution to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the Save Our Shores victory over the attempt by Aristotle Onassis to build the world's largest oil refinery on Durham Point. I did so because it did not appear that the town had made any formal recognition of previous anniversaries of this historic, hard-won victory, but also because I have a personal connection to that history, as well as to both Durham Point and to the land we call Wagon Hill Farm across the Oyster River. First, my mother played an important role in the Save Our Shores efforts. Second, decades after moving here from California, my parents were dumbfounded to discover that my father's ancestors, settlers on Durham Point, were among the victims of the 1694 raid at a site across the Oyster River from Wagon Hill Farm. And in the graveyard at Wagon Hill lies my ancestor, Colonel James Davis, who died in 1749. I will conclude with 4 additional points. 1. We lost important congressionally directed potential funding due to the removal of the post and beam structure of the barn that thereby made it ineligible. 2. Thanks to the proactive efforts of DPW staff, we have been extraordinarily fortunate to benefit from federal funding available for infrastructure projects, thereby reducing the burden on taxpayers for those critical investments. There is no such big bucket of federal funding for preservation projects. But since we have kicked several preservation cans down the road for decades, the piper must now be paid. 3. Previous councils, including some sitting councilors, approved earlier applications for LCHIP grants for the Bickford-Chesley farmhouse. While conceptually no council may hold previous councils to as yet unfunded commitments, particularly as new information becomes available, it should be of some concern that a reversal of these approvals could leave Durham in a precarious position for future LCHIP applications. 4, and this is where I'm going to throw myself on the third rail. My current and recent neighbors, many now in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, who live in modest homes, do not complain about their taxes in public. But through our property taxes, we subsidize both education and recreational activities for younger families, even though some of us have never had children in the Oyster River School District. Most of us are happy to support the educational programs, but some of us have become appalled by ongoing requests to support recreational amenities that a town this small would never have countenanced in the past. I value the efforts of all who engage in efforts to build and sustain a sense of community, so I feel hesitant but also obliged to be blunt. It is time for those with families that want more recreational opportunities to shoulder more of the funding for those initiatives. Some of us have for decades worked toward and contributed financially to protecting the lands that provide trails and other recreational opportunities for Durham residents and visitors. We have been happy to do so. But some of us also recognize that we risk losing an appreciation for our history and for those who made it if we don't take action to bring that history alive. And it's time to do just that. Thank you, and I will send copies of this to you all.
Thank you, Robin.
Beth Olshansky, Packers Falls Road. Here I am once again following Robin Mower, who eloquently stated, the deep, rich heritage that this land and the house offer our community. And I was also struck earlier this evening by so many well-spoken statements by many of our other residents about the value and importance of this land. As I think about it, I think about our society and where we're going, and being in touch with children and my own grandchildren, how much electronics and screen time and everything is just overwhelming our kids' lives. And I guess I'm thinking about a couple of our counselor members who are just starting out on their parenting journey, but just the importance of bringing those children into nature, which of course you can do already, but understanding the value and the history. And I have a little story to tell, because probably 30 years ago, I brought my own 3 daughters to Wagon Hill, and we were down by the bay, and we discovered clay banks in the bay, and this was before the fence, so you actually we could go down there, and we didn't know better. And so my kids started making clay pots, and we started talking about our heritage and of the native people, and also the early settlers to create their own stoneware. And that experience stayed with my kids, and one of them today is a potter. And that just, the beauty and power of connecting with the earth and our heritage, I just think it's so valuable. And let's not throw it away in a time when our whole world is going crazy. And, on a big level, we just don't know what's coming next, but let's savor some of these things in our community, which we do have and treasure and would like to give to generations that come in. I'm sure that when the house is fully restored, it can be a great place for community and school groups to come and start to dig a little bit deeper into that heritage in time of a simpler life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carolyn Singer, Woodridge Road, Durham. Well, I'm going to spare you. I'm not going to read my original statement. It's pretty clear, I think, through all the letters you've gotten today and the testimonies tonight, that Durham residents want to see the Bickford Chesley House open for public use through option 2. The community is more than hard and soft infrastructure. It includes intangible values. It's about protecting a sense of place, respect for residents who over time have built this community. It's actually about building community pride and cohesiveness. And please don't think those things aren't important. We have an obligation to save our historic places for future generations. That's basically what I want to say. I know that there's a tour of Churchill Rink and Jackson Landing on December 9th, and I would like actually town councilors to visit Bickford Chesley House before you vote on the budget. I don't know how many of you have actually been to the site. And I also would like right now to answer any questions you might have. Yes?
I have a question. The LCHIP money that's been granted was for a scope of work. If option 1 is chosen, is that LCHIP money at risk?
Yes, because we made certain obligations in the grant application that will not be met.
Do we know what those obligations are?
We said we were going to put a caretaker's apartment up and operational. We also talked about L's and programming.
Is that written down somewhere?
It is.
I would
I
love to
believe
see
the
that.
caretaker's apartment and the money for that was denied by LCHIP, wasn't it?
LCHIP pays for historic rehabilitation. It doesn't pay what they for what they consider to be modern, amenities, so to speak. But for what we wanted to do, we had to, there's a mix of that in this project.
And just for clarity, because you seem to be the most familiar with the grant, if, again, option 1 is done, and LCHIP denied funds for the caretaker's apartment.
They didn't deny it. We didn't ask for that because that is, that's actually not for public use. A caretaker is going to live there, so it's not for the public. And that's part of what LCHIP wants to do, is restore these historic buildings for public use.
They pushed back on the caretaker's apartment and
They
said,
didn't
we're not
push-
going to fund it.
They didn't push back. It's not eligible.
So they're not funding it.
That's correct. But they are funding, they're funding part, they're funding the, and I'm not the best person to talk about the actual construction work being done, but they're doing the fit out between the, I guess you'd say the ceiling of the first floor and the floor of the second.
Maybe you could confirm or correct my understanding. It seems to me like Durham put together a vision for this property through some committee work, and that vision included restoring the property, having a caretaker's apartment, and doing some work on the L's to have, for example, public bathrooms available and to open up the house to programming.
And an ADA ramp.
And so, that vision was what was put in for the LCHIP grant. And when the grant application was done, as part of any grant application, you would identify which parts of that vision that grant might be applied for. So even though there was an understanding that LCHIP would only cover certain parts of that vision, the application spoke to that vision as a whole. And so the application was submitted with this vision in mind. Does that seem
Yes,
accurate?
and I want you to remember that, the post and beam barn was torn down. They put up another barn, and that's been vacant. I think Public Works uses it for storage because the public can't access it. And this is prime programming space. I mean, I don't understand why that doesn't always resonate with people, because you have site, place-based learning opportunities here. Kids can firsthand, do environmental work. There's just limitless opportunities.
I think that's part of the problem. The opportunities are limitless, but the plan doesn't seem to exist. It's just what's going to be done with this
Well, oh no, I have plans.
opportunity.
If you would like to see my plans, I have them.
I'd be pleased to read them.
I will do so.
There's not that much time between now and December 2nd, but if there's an opportunity for the counselors to actually do an interior tour, I think that would be pretty
Can they
enlightening.
go individually, or do you have to go
I
as
went
a
as an
group?
individual, and
Okay,
so.
because if people want to do it, I can be contacted and we will set up tours for anyone who wants to go.
I'm happy to be a part of a tour.
Just, so keep that in mind if you all would like to have a chance to do a tour.
Be prepared to be shocked at the condition of the building. My only concern, it's been 35 years since we bought that site, and nothing was done. The governance that was supposed to go in wasn't done. What improvements to the site weren't done. And it's taken 35 years to do it, and some elderly members of the Historical Society actually cleaned the building out. I was up
Well,
there.
I'm gonna say it was the Durham Historic Association and the Heritage Commission.
I'm not being critical of anyone except that,
We work together.
yeah, I know. But I hope it can be done now, but I walked through that, it was sad that it was allowed to go so bad as it was.
So can you tell me exactly kind of what, I have lots of documents. What would you like to see?
I'd like to see the plan.
And I would be interested in the understanding of what the LCHIP requirements are.
So if you can share those with the council, that'd be
Yeah.
great. Yes.
Just note, I think Councilor Friedrichs described the scenario around the grant application very accurately.
Yeah, you did.
Good, good. But it might be helpful for everyone to see what it looks like. So, any other questions? I see we have 3 minutes left in this meeting, unless someone would like to move to extend the meeting.
How many people in the audience are waiting to speak at this public hearing?
Oh, okay. I didn't know if we had any more speakers or not. So,
Yeah.
so
That would factor into whether
Yes.
I move to extend the meeting or continue the
yeah,
public hearing.
is there
but-
anyone other than Joshua?
There was one, he doesn't want to.
Okay.
So how
I'll
much
move-
time do you think you will need? Do you know?
6 minutes and 25 seconds.
Better than what you do
I don't have a formal statement, so that was,
Okay, yeah.
that was a wild guess.
Just to be safe, I
I
will
was
move
giving
to
myself
extend
an
the
extra
meeting
minute and
until
25.
10:45.
Okay.
All right.
Is there a second to extend the meeting?
Well, a quick discussion. It sounds like then we would not be doing roundtable.
Yes.
I do wonder if it would be helpful to Todd and for the town staff to just have a extremely brief but like straw poll thought of how many questions do folks have around the budget, and how much do they feel like the budget needs additional work? Does that make sense? Would that be helpful? Because I think if,
I would support that.
I think that would be helpful to Todd and to the town staff who spent so much time here tonight.
Hey, we're almost done. Lay
So-
back down.
So,
But
There's not a
10:45 might be
second.
Okay,
sufficient.
so
There's not a second yet on this.
I don't know.
do we feel like 10:45 is enough
Second.
time for Josh's comments and a quick, I think maybe we need to go to like 11, 10:50, 11?
I make a motion to extend the meeting till 11.
Wait.
We didn't-
There's
There's already a motion. There's already a motion on the
There's already a
floor.
motion on
It
the
hasn't
floor.
been seconded.
It has not been seconded. Is there a second for the motion that's at the table? So there's no second.
Yeah, then I will withdraw the motion and let Councilor Register make his motion.
Thank you.
I make a motion to extend the meeting till 11 p.m.
I'll second the motion.
All right, let's do a hand raise. All those in favor of going until 11?
Yes,
1,
do
2,
it.
3. And all those opposed? 1, 2, 3. All right. The yeas carry, so we will continue. So, There
Joshua
you go,
Meyer
Joshua.
with 7 Chesley Drive. I don't have formal comments. I just want to reinforce and support the idea of preserving and enhancing the Bickford Chesley house. I've always, along with Councilor Burton, wondered why it was so neglected, when it seemed to me that establishing it as something that could be used from everything from bathrooms to exhibits to events would basically redeem that huge purchase the town made for this almost 140-acre site, and allow families that often have people of different ages and different abilities and different tolerances for hours of sledding to make multi-use of the site. You have kids who are too young to sled, but their sibling is sledding there. Where do the parents and those kids be? People who are too old to sled, too disabled to sled, too scared to sled, or all the other activities that are done on that site. It just seems like we don't have that many, in addition to preserving the historical nature of it, we don't have that many event sites. I would go for option 3, where we have a year-round event site, and as Councilor Lund mentioned on October 21, where the fees for some of that could help the expenses. I mean, it just seems like, why are we doing this? I mean, 1989 was also the year my son Adam was born, and we took a lot of good care of him for a very long time, so that he grew up to actually fix Durham's trucks for a while until he bought Car Works of Lee, where he now has, a lot has happened to him in those 35 years. And I think nothing has happened to preserve that house. And I think that, so I just would strongly support that. And it just seemed to me enriches this value of the site in so many ways, to just have a place to go warm up for a while when you're using the site for cold weather activities, to have grandpa wait for the sledders. I mean, just like so many wonderful things could come of it. So, so that, it's basically what I wanted to say, and reinforce support for that. I think it's a really important thing to do. So it's only 2 minutes and 21 seconds, so I give you an extra 4 minutes.
Thank you, Joshua. Is there anyone else who would like to speak, knowing that we have more time? Oh, here she comes.
I just want to thank our town staff for patiently wading through what must be very frustrating to them.
Yes.
That was 61 seconds.
We need to close our hearing. All right.
I move to close the public hearing on the budget then.
Second.
It's a public hearing. All those in favor? All those opposed? Looks unanimous. All right. So, Councilor Friedrich had a suggestion of how we might approach next. So I'm happy to go down that path for town councilors to just quickly go around and say whether there are areas that you will have questions about in terms of the budget. Does that reflect what you're thinking?
Just a sense of, is the budget pretty near being ready to accept in terms of how much is being spent and where it's being spent, or do we feel like there's significant areas of work?
And I would say at the same time with that, if there are areas that you do have concerns about, if you can put them in writing and let the, you copy to Todd and the department head would be helpful too. So, do you want to start? No?
All right, sure. So, I mean, I do not have an accounting background. I only run a household budget. But I do appreciate how much inflation has affected the budget, but I also anticipate in coming years that will continue to be our norm. I think every indicator in terms of predictability, global supply chains, possible tariffs coming down the road, our future budgets, I would expect inflation to be similar. And so I do know from running a household budget that, when costs go up, we have to look harder at our spending. We don't, for a lot of folks, their salaries do not adjust to inflation. Not everyone has even a clause in there that adjusts for cost of living. And so I am mindful of that, and I'm mindful of property taxes do figure into how much, how affordable a place is to live, because property taxes get passed down to rental costs. That's a factor in terms of building affordable housing. You have to factor that in into keeping those prices affordable. So I do think there's room to trim some more items there, and I can send some more specific comments to Todd about that.
My understanding is that ultimately, any of those changes we want to make will end up being separate motions. So someone might move to eliminate something from the budget, or, yeah, okay.
But I guess my general feeling is I do think we could get to that goal of the last year's budget plus inflation. The cost of living increase, sorry. That our stated council goal.
Excuse me, did you say you think we can get there?
I do think we can get there.
So do you have in mind the number that has been floated out there, that it's approximately $468,000 to cut?
Yes.
Anyone, thank you. Anyone want to be the next to speak?
I don't mind jumping on the grenade.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll say I appreciate the work that's gone into the budget. I'm also not a math major. I went into the Marine Corps because I was bad at math. But I appreciate how diligently the department worked together, how transparent they were in the process of letting me ask a multitude of questions, as well as being very eager and very helpful with getting me answers. I think for the most part, across the board, I'm very pleased with the budget. I particularly like that we're paying our people. That's a very important aspect of having quality service, I believe, and so I'm glad to see that that was a priority for the town. I will acknowledge that the only real concern I have is with the Chesley House. And so I don't want to waste money. I don't want to, in the sense of losing the LCHIP grant. I think that is very important, but I want to understand the bare bones requirements, because $2 million is a lot of money. And I listening to what the county commissioners talking about the increased inflation, the increased taxes that are coming down our way, as well as the increase in cost of living to folks. I'm worried that with the austerity that is coming and that we are currently living in, that we may not be in a position to do an option 3, option 2 type mindset.
Option 3, we're willing to give up, but option 2 is pretty much,
I just want to make sure I'm clear with my concerns.
And other, yes.
So I just wanted to also say that I think the goal, the council's goal of keeping in line with inflation and the rate is a worthwhile goal, and I would work to getting that $468,000 off the current year's budget so that we can meet that goal. And I have some ways that I think we can do it, and I'll forward that to the administrator that will go around to the rest of the council.
Be next then? I was just looking at the budget comparisons, fixed cost, general fund operating budget only. And I guess, I understand, we even emphasize that a lot of our budget increase was because we have salary increases. Well, we need salary increases because we have to support our people. Sure. But what I saw is also this sort of remaining budget items, which actually had what I consider to be a higher percentage than our actual personnel costs. And I'd like to be able to dig into more of that, of a Pareto of the cost from top to bottom. There's no use talking about $2,000, right? We need to be looking at the big numbers and finding out what we can really dig into. So that was sort of what obviously we need to spend an entire meeting kind of digging through that stuff. I can't dig through all this myself and have that through line by line, department by department, in small numbers. What's the biggest fatness in there that is controllable or not controllable? But we have this as remaining budget items at a really large percentage increase, Yeah, okay, we have insurance increases, we have this. Well, what are those Paretos, and what can we touch and what can't we touch? And I don't think we have that great of a grasp of that. And then I only had a small one, was in the rec department, they actually showed an increase in incoming for fees, but we didn't actually reflect that in the current, for 2025 budget. So it seems they're going to add more costs into bringing people in for some of the programs, but not a corresponding, what I would see would be a reflection of a larger income coming back into with the fees. So those are my two comments.
I had also highlighted the percent remaining budget items, that large increase from 2024 to 2025. That was a question I will write a bit about
From
that.
Parks and Rec.
No, the overall, page 11 of the information booklet.
Okay, yeah, I have some concerns on this budget. Many of you have seen the query that I sent to Gail about the certain items. There was a line for web services that was inadvertently zeroed out, and so we will need to add back the money to level fund that. I also had a question in the Parks and Recreation budget about the large increase in after-school services, which may overlap with Councilor Grant's question on that budget. What's driving that, and do we have revenues offsetting that? And there were some items in the capital improvement plan as well for both the fire department and for the wastewater, which I will put those into writing and submit to Administrator Selig.
So far, I'm the only person sitting here who's suggesting that maybe we need to spend more money to support the fire department, and the fact that, and let's get into the numbers, but I sent a note that I think certainly got shared with everyone, I think, in terms of, that overtime that they spent this year, and is there something we should be doing so that we can work with the fire department and not find ourselves potentially spending $250,000 on overtime. So that's what I've been looking at. And hopefully, when we finally get into a discussion, we'll get some numbers that would be helpful. Yes?
I was interested in looking at the water and the wastewater budgets, and I was trying to reconcile various pieces because unfortunately you have to kind of hunt and peck to find numbers. But on page 24 of the information booklet, the numbers are, well, they can't be correct. The 2020 general obligation bond has a 1.67 interest rate. It's a little under $700,000, and yet we're talking about paying interest of $196,000 in 2024. That's more like a 36% interest rate. So, and the next one below that also doesn't seem to calculate out correctly. So I'm trying to track where numbers are and what are the real numbers, and how do I reconcile everything?
Sure. Okay. So, and if you can...
And there are other areas where numbers don't agree, from one sheet to another sheet, so...
Can you highlight those so that the...
I highlighted them for myself, yes. And do you want me to tell you now or later?
Well, I'm just thinking it'd be helpful, not for now, but I'm thinking so that Gail and Todd have something to work from, so they can know where your concerns are. It would be helpful to have those ahead of the December 2nd meeting.
and I've argued with this with Curtis for a long time now, I am disappointed that the library has no source of revenue. They've got a lot of meeting space, they do a lot of things there after hours. I'm assuming there's somebody from the library staff there who's being paid overtime, yet it seems like everything's free.
Well, the overtime is in question, but I think it's because they just changed what their hours are to accommodate that. Do you want to come up? Sure. If that's a quick answer.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Cheryl Bass. I'm the Public Library Director. It's nice to see you. Thank you for having me. To answer your question, we do not work overtime. We have 3 exempt employees at the library who will flex their schedule to meet the requirements of any meetings that we have.
Okay, so, it's flex time, which means there is a part of their salary should be allocated to that time.
Yes, but
Okay.
to be clear though, when we do have late meetings, our building is set up in a way that we can actually leave people in the building and secure it so that meetings can happen after hours.
And to be correct, there are no revenues being generated by the library.
That is correct.
Wait a minute, I buy cookies there all the time.
That money is okay.
And where are you on getting funds from the trustees this year?
Our trustees contribute at least $20,000 to the budget annually.
21, they contributed almost 40,000.
This is true. So when we go over our allotted budget, or if we have special projects, so whether it's facilities or special, things that we want to do for, as far as programming goes or for the collection, the trustees chip in extra money to cover those costs.
So,
I also see donations are budgeted at 0 for 2024.
No, they'll be contributing at least $20,000.
But it is showing 0
It is showing, it's
currently in the budget.
So that is a transfer in, so the operating budget and the transfer in from the funds appear differently in the revenue lines.
Didn't understand that.
Go ahead.
I think, why don't we have Gail walk us through that at the next meeting? She can explain it.
Again, I think, I'm just looking at the clock too, give everybody a chance to share and not take more of your time right now.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you for staying.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share their thoughts at this point about the budget? Okay, yes?
I'm just wondering, are there specific departments that you feel you won't need to speak further with? So we don't necessarily need to bring them back? Like town clerk tax collection, are there specific questions you have for them?
Have you updated the police budget to reflect the new wage contract?
Yes, that's included.
I don't need to talk to the police department. I don't know about
We should
others.
probably just do by exception, because there's a lot of, so I've heard fire department, I've heard, well, that's all I've heard. What else can you say?
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec.
Water and wastewater.
When I talk to Public Works, yeah.
Well,
And then SIP for the Berkeley Festival.
Do you want to talk with the rink, for example? Do you have questions about the ice rink?
The rink is self-funding.
It is? It is.
One of the problems, though, with Parks and Rec is contracted services are going up at a much faster rate than program revenues.
That's precisely the line that I had a question about.
So, it's the old joke, are we going to make it up in volume?
That's a marketing term.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so I think when we have time, we can talk with Rachel about that, and about the programs, revenue, additional staffing, or contracted services that are coming in.
I have a question. Is there another meeting format that would serve this purpose?
Well, typically, we would go on this evening, if there was enough time, we would have gone through each of the departments one by one and had the department head come and sit, and we would have asked whatever questions the council had. And if we didn't get through all of them, then we'd bring in those who we hadn't yet spoken with at the following meeting. But tonight, due to a heavy schedule, we weren't able to do that. So I think it'd be helpful to know whether there are some departments where there just are not additional questions, so they don't have to come back. I've got the list of, Public Works, water, wastewater, fire, maybe police, I'm not sure.
So I think my question is there another format that doesn't violate right to know that we could have during normal working hours for the concern areas? And then that way, when we have the next town council meeting, it's for approval of the budget?
No, we would have to post and hold a council meeting during the workday to do that. And that would be, I think, challenging for everyone's schedules.
Sure.
Now, that was similar to what we did to the budget reviews in August and September.
Yeah, with the budget
We're
reviews.
more flies on the wall in there, right?
Yeah, those were more my meetings with the departments.
Right.
And we posted it for the public, so if anyone was interested in coming, they could, and counselors could come. And you're right, counselors were more flies on the walls, and if there was time, you could ask questions. But that was more for my purposes in preparing something for you. But again, my goal is to try to prepare something for you and to help you get comfortable with a document to adopt. And not to fight with you about it, but I'll tell you what I think, about it, so.
Okay.
Are you looking for a meeting format that allows us sort of like a workshop, like?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for.
I don't know if that can be, needs to be December 9th, does it need to wait?
Well,
Because we do have a meeting.
Yeah,
We have
And
3
the
meetings
intention
in
is to
December.
expedite the decision-making, not elongate.
We did add a meeting just for the budget.
Yes,
Right,
so we have the 2nd
on
to
December
9th,
9th.
and the 16th in December.
Okay, and
That'd be too bad to have
The
to.
9th.
yeah,
is
Gail
the
just
special
sent
meeting.
over an email with the corrected water fund bond payment schedule that Councilor Bubar referred to earlier.
Yeah, I just want to check that to the budget.
No, so I think for the meeting on the 2nd, we'll have to think through, as part of agenda setting, what's manageable in terms of the zoning change for housing and discussion around that and the budget. And so we'll have to work that through. Then we've got the special meeting on the 9th that we've set up, that's a budget work session. And then we'll have one final meeting in December before the Christmas holiday. So we've got three more opportunities for the council to talk about it.
Can we let some of these people go? I'm thinking of
He's the boss.
Mr. Page and maybe the police, if we don't have any issues with the budget for them, there's no reason for them to be sitting here or coming back.
Aren't we going to talk about any of it now anyway?
No, we have
We got
7
6 more
minutes.
minutes, or,
6 or 7 minutes, whatever, yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm getting my eyes
some-
checked on Wednesday, so.
I had some questions for IT, for assessing, but not for planning and code. I don't know if anyone else wants to,
Yeah, none of those.
not for the tax clerk, town clerk department. If that's,
A question, thinking out loud. If people can send their concerns, questions to Todd, is there a way to take on some departments, but not all departments on the 2nd, and then, follow up on the 9th, and then
Yeah, well,
would that work?
if you send us the questions, let us come up with a schedule that's more manageable. And we'll have a certain subgroup of departments here that we can work through,
And then-
finish with them, bring in the next group the next time. And that way, there'll be more time.
And on
If
the
there aren't
9th,
any questions for a department, then don't need to come, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, sounds reasonable. Good, good. Any more comments this evening, Town Council? Okay.
Do we want to take a minute and approve the minutes of November 4th? It's on the agenda.
We can do
As a matter
that.
of fact, I move to approve the minutes. of
I'll
November
second
4th.
that motion.
Second that motion. Discussion, I know I sent in 2 tiny grammatical things.
Thank
And
you, everyone.
So
Good
did
night.
anybody have any substantive changes that they wanted to make to the minutes? Is my question. In that case, we can vote on the minutes. All those in favor of approving the minutes? All those opposed? Looks unanimous. All right. Thank you. Good suggestion. Where are we? Anything roundtable wise, people, anyone needs the council to know in the next 5 minutes before December 2nd?
It's the astronaut, Scott, what is his last name? Will be in the area November 15th at Oyster River Middle School and Oyster River High School. So if you want to see that or have your kids there,
When?
it's pretty cool. November 15th.
That was last week.
Oh, dang it, I'm so brain dead.
But thank you for that.
I was excited about that one too.
One thought, maybe in this week's Friday updates, could we put in an explanation of that lead testing letter that
Sure.
I'm assuming all
Yeah,
households went out to? Because I know I opened that and I was like, huh, okay, and I'm really glad that we had the water treatment plant tour, but other folks may be going, eh.
Yeah.
An explanation for the Friday updates would
Yep.
be helpful.
We were able to get one, so I think it would be easy to do.
Okay, can I do,
Yes.
can I do an announcement?
Announcement, yes.
Yeah, just, all right, so I wanted to let you know, I want to report that I've traded in my 2017 Mini Cooper Clubman for BMW's smallest crossover vehicle, built on the same frame as my now discontinued Clubman, the X1 in space gray metallic. And I wanted to know that on the car, I've chosen to display the American flag, on the black bumper. This is not to make a political statement. Rather, my father, who was an important role model for me, served in the U.S. Air Force during the Vietnam War. In part because of what I learned from him, I'm proud to be an American, and I feel personally compelled at this turbulent time to display the flag, which I believe is a positive symbol of our country and the important democratic values it represents. The flag does not belong to any person or party or political campaign. It belongs to all Americans. So, thank you.
All right.
That was worth waiting for.
That's
Thank you. Yeah. Second.
Thank you for hearing me.
I just yelled out second.
All in favor?
Yeah, we're not even supposed to have a discussion after we start a motion
No,
to,
you can't
but
discuss.
we couldn't resist.
Just call the motion. I can't, I'm
All
not a
those in
ref for hockey
favor of
referee.
adjourning the meeting? Any opposed? No. All right, this meeting is adjourned.
All right, look at that, 2 whole minutes early.
Excuse me?
Accomplishment.